Good evening, folks. Scott here. I just wanted to go over this second part for Deconverted Man's survey. So, in the link, in the description, I have a link to that survey, so you can also take it if you're a naturalist, atheist, agnostic, someone who isn't a theist necessarily. So, I just wanted to kind of pick up where I left off. I know it's been a minute. I just wanted to get this done while I have the opportunity. So, I'm going to go ahead and go over the questions as they are outlined. Haven't really prepared anything, so I'm kind of going off the fly here. So just to kind of scroll down here on my end, he says, how much time, broadly speaking, have you studied the following? Science, cosmology, biology, informal logic, formal logic, philosophy, epistemology, world religions, Judeo Christian Bible, other holy books. So I've done quite a lot of extensive research because I'm interested in these topics. I've had a background as a Jehovah's Witness um, many moons ago. And that's where my little journey into spirituality actually started. Next question. What do you think God is? Made up, object of the mind, delusion, illusion? I would say it's an illusion of the mind epistemically, um, but I can't say that for an absolute fact because those are just my opinions. I can speak only for myself. As far as I'm concerned, when I studied God through Jehovah's Witnesses and other Christian churches and so forth, um, I thought I knew that God existed, but I came to understand that my epistemology um, was not supporting. I had bad epistemology for that belief. So at least that particular God, I wasn't really knowing that. It was more of a belief. And beliefs are just, experiences that we have of our mind. It's what we infer, in other words. And our inferences can be wrong. It isn't necessarily knowledge in the absolute sense, at least, right? Next question. Do you hate God? No, because I don't hate things that are imaginary. Do you hate religion? Um, I have a mixed feeling about that. I know that there's a lot of bad things about religion. I wouldn't say I hate it because, again, um, that would be too general. It just depends. I'm not really sure about that question, how I should answer it. But if we can talk about some of the bad things that religion has offered the world, I hate those things. But religions are made up of people who have dualistic sort of thinking about the world, and that leads to division, conflicts, and hate. And I'm not engaged in that. I'd rather not engage with it. I just take people for where they're at in their life journey. I don't think that people are necessarily bad because they're religious. I don't think they're necessarily stupid. I don't think they're I don't make any moral judgment one way or the other. I feel like it's just part of people's journey. I was on it too, and it led me out into where I am today. So, in a way, I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't have my experience with religion. So, do I hate it? No. Do you want to get rid of religion? Sure, because religions um, are limiting. But all of this stuff is sort of contextual when we start asking that kind of question. Speaking personally, um, I have nothing to do with organized religion, so to speak. And so I want to get rid of it in my life. It's already gotten rid of. But as I said, people are on their own journey. They have to go through these things. So do I want to get rid of it? Not necessarily, because contextually, right now, we don't know, and people have to learn. I don't like politics either. Do I want to get rid of politics altogether? Not really. It's part of our evolution. We have to embrace the things of this world in order to refine, evolve, and change as a people over time, right? And so we need these sort of tensions in the world. We need these sort of challenges, and all these things play their own role in that regard. So I wouldn't want to get rid of it really when you think about that question deeply. Do you want to deconvert people from religion? Well, I think people deconvert themselves based on the information. I want to be an expository for my own viewpoint. I want to express my viewpoint as does everyone, right? And I think that then people have the information at their disposal, so they can decide what to do with that information, whether this means they should deconvert or not. So, no, I'm not really out with some sort of, I'm not a card carrying atheist, so to speak. What is the true nature of reality? I would say the true nature of reality is experience, phenomenal consciousness. Does life matter? Um, it matters to me because I couldn't be conscious and have an experience as who I am if this person did not exist. So life does matter. It's yeah, I'm not a nihilist, so I find a lot of meaning in life, even as an unbeliever. What happens when we die? I believe that our ego no longer exists when we die because our brain dies, and our thinking, our dreams, our dichotomous ideas, and so forth will go away. Um, but we have to define what we mean by the I or the self. I believe that the self is a construction of the brain. It's a construction that we develop throughout the course of our lifespan, right? And those things go away when you die. Do you hold any beliefs that are not mundane? ESP, aliens visiting Earth, time travelers are real, moon is a big space station, conspiracy theories. I believe that I would say, I think there's something to ESP just based on what I've read, but that's subject to change if I find out. Like, for example, there's a project called the telepathy tapes where they've measured telepathy and stuff like that. It may be true. It's just not part of my experience. My partner, my co-host on the show, is a mystic, and she has those sort of transcendent sort of experiences. I don't take that away from her. I think there's a lot of synchronicity that she experiences, and that I have also personally experienced something we call synchronicity. I don't claim to know exactly what that means or what it is. I just know it's part of people's experience. I don't invalidate people's experiences. The attributions may be incorrect, but if we're rational, we can look at the world through the light of science, through the light of conducting experiments, and we can all be a scientist in our own way through this experience, and we can test, we can make predictions, and if they're consistently verified through experimentation, whether personally or objectively, in like a shared sort of measurement that we can share with science, sure, these sort of things can be validated, right? And there are claims that such things like ESP are valid. They have been validated from what the claims are. I wasn't there, so I don't really know. It's also possible that people lie. It's probably more common that people lie and make stuff up than it is that these sort of things actually happen, um, just as far as I know. But that doesn't prove or disprove anything, right? Aliens visiting the Earth, I'm not really sure about that. I don't know what these UFOs are. I mean, we're having congressional hearings every year about this stuff. Apparently, government officials are taking this serious. I am a sci-fi fan, so I've always been interested in such things. And I'm sure I'm wired up as a creative person to find interest in such things. So I admit that. But I also can be honest and say I don't know. Again, attribution. We can be mistaken. Our minds are limited. Why do you talk about God so much if you don't believe in it? Well, I think the God topic is a good way to test out epistemology, philosophy, logic. It's just a good subject to explore our epistemology. You know, it's kind of like a clear way to kind of test that. And so I like engaging in it. I've had just like I've had a background with science fiction. I've had a background with religion, in God, being a theist. And so these sort of things are interests for me, and I enjoy it. What do you think believers misunderstand most about non-believers? I would say the fact that we're genuine. A lot of people think we hate God, or um, we're just digging our heels in against things that we don't want to believe. In many cases, this may be true. It wouldn't surprise me. I can't speak for people, though. I can only speak for myself. What do you think non believers misunderstand about believers? The same thing. I think it's not in their experience. And so they assume that these folks may be delusional, they may be liars, they may be illogical, rooted in emotionalism, cognitive bias, cognitive distortion. Much of that might be true, but not all the time. But as far as I'm concerned, I've never met a God. I've never spoken to a God. It can't really be proven one way or the other. God is kind of a nebulous concept. I think there are over 8 billion gods because there's 8 billion people on the planet. Actually, there's more gods than that because, we have hundreds of thousands and thousands of billions of millions of human beings. I don't mean to be exaggerating, but I don't know what the number really is. That's why I say that. A lot of people have existed in the world. A lot of people have believed in God over time since humanity has been around on this planet. And so there are billions and billions and billions of gods, right? And the gods are reflections of how people perceive the God. Even if you take these gods from holy texts, holy books, teachings from others, because language is ineffable, the way people understand and perceive these sort of concepts are all individual, and they cater to the mind of that individual, and everybody is unique in their own kind of way. And so these concepts about God are going to reflect that, right? And I think that's all for this survey. So I think I'm going to leave it there. In my first video, I kind of outlined the first half of this stuff. So you can see that if you go back and revisit it, the survey for Deconverted Man on my channel here. And yeah, man, I appreciate it. I think Deconverted Man is going to show up on this channel, the Mirror Point, to discuss some things. And just to kind of let you know that I am an idealist. I'm not a theist, but I am an idealist, which is that I believe in conscious experience as fundamental epistemically. And I can infer that it makes more sense philosophically and logically, right? I think that experience is primary, um, because anytime we want to describe something like consciousness, we always describe consciousness as something else. We have this identity theory about it. And that really doesn't make a lot of sense because we're trying to take the appearances that exist within our mind to extrapolate that that is what consciousness is. So this kind of circular, that's a circular thing. So epistemically and even ontologically, I would say that I lean towards idealism, but I'm a non-dualist, which is a little bit different, but it is a monism. I can get into that later. I don't want to get into it here. I just wanted to address the second portion of this survey. So hopefully this helps. And my co-host Sophia is also working on doing the survey as well. So I'm going to post that up here as well. And tomorrow, Saturday, November the 8th, we're going to be interviewing Paul Missell, who's an author working on a book about idealism and theism and how they may intersect in that view that he may hold. So we're looking forward to that. And please tune in again, like and subscribe to my channel as well. We've got a lot of super guests coming up. We've got a lineup. We have, as I mentioned before, a third co host on our channel that'll be showing up more. That's Objective Ethics, who brings a lot to the table. He's a naturalist, an agnostic, and it seems he has a lot of non dualistic perspectives as well, as it turns out. So he's talking my language. We're not always going to agree on this channel. This is not an echo chamber. And so please, if you have different views, feel free to come on the show. We stream live every day, usually at 12 in the afternoon Central Time. So please tune in, join us for an open conversation. Tomorrow we will be starting early to be respectful of Paul Missell's schedule. He's in the UK, and so it's a little late to start in at 12 Central American time. So we're going to do that at 10 a.m. in the morning tomorrow to have Paul on, and we can discuss these things. Still, come on through. We want to see you. We can answer any questions in the live chat, and we'll open up the stage to do live discussions. So please feel free, come on through. I look forward to it. Like and subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of fun. And hey, everybody, I'm looking at the live chat. Joel Davis, what's going on, man? Uh, Camp Timber Wild, I don't think we've ever met, but hello, welcome. Cam Hayes, hey, how you doing? How old are you? He asks. Let me post these things up here. I am 108 years old. No, I'm just kidding. I'm 56 years old. 56 years young. Thank you very much. And Brooklyn Lou, what is going on, my brother? Brooklyn Lou's in the house. And yeah, I'm glad everybody's showing up. Looks like it's a good time to be doing this stuff. We've got so many people jumping on, so I hate to just end the stream. I don't want to do that. Let's just see where it goes. Does anybody want to come in, ask any questions, join? Feel free. I'll keep it open. I've got nothing else to do. I'm right here, so we can take questions. We can have an open conversation on the stage if you like, or post your questions in the live chat if you have any. For me, like I said, I'm a non-dualist. I can tell you more about that if you like. I'm also lean towards the philosophy of idealism. Just to kind of let you know, non-dualism for me is more of a practice than any sort of religion or belief system, right? It's just an understanding. And so, yeah, we can go over non-dualism. I'll kind of tell you a little bit about that. I wrote a few things. It's so funny. The other day, I was on a live chat in this platform called Free for Talk. Me and Objective Ethics and Sophia joined in a little later, and we were fielding questions about non-dualism and agnosticism, atheism, what all this stuff means for folks. And we had such a great time. We were on there for 6 hours. And from that interaction, we had 8 new subscribers that day based on that conversation because it was handled very civilly. It was wonderful. And yeah, I love talking about non-dualism. I take this stuff very serious. It helps me. Um, and yeah, I'll just kind of get into it a little bit, Lou, for you. Non-dualism sort of means not two, right? And it's opposed to dualism. Dualism is the idea, like in religious terms, you could say there's the soul and the body, right? And so you've got the soul versus the body. Um, but in other ways, in the ways that I'm speaking of it, it has more to do with just um, um, understanding the world as it is, right? So, like I said, non-dualism means two. Dualism, or not two. Dualism is the idea that there are at least two things in the world. There's mind and matter. So, dualism would say that mental phenomena like thoughts, experiences, feelings are not really reducible to purely physical processes like brain chemistry or neural activity. In other words, the mind and body are different kinds of stuff, right? That's not really what it's about. Uh, in dualism, this comes from Rene Descartes in the 1600s. He kind of argued that the mind is a non physical thinking substance, and then the body is a physical extended substance in space. They can interact, but they're fundamentally different in nature. And this creates what's called the mind body problem, and it has never been solved. It's still an issue. And I think this is because we lack good concepts. Now it's kind of called the hard problem of consciousness these days. That's how David Chalmers, a very famous philosopher, coined that term back in 1994 at a TED talk. And ever since then, it's just spawned so much consciousness research. Again, there's all sorts of forms of dualism, like substance dualism. And this is sort of the idea that mind and matter are two distinct kinds of substances. You've got property dualism. There's only one kind of substance, the physical, but it has both physical and mental properties. Then we've got epiphenomenalism, which is a kind of materialistic explanation. It's basically the idea that the mind arises from physical processes, but has no causal power of its own. It's kind of like the steam that comes off a train, right? So it's just what the brain does. But because it's just that, kind of like digestion is, it doesn't have any causal power. There's interactionism. This is like the mind and body influence each other. There's parallelism. Mind and body run in sync, but never truly interact like two synchronized clocks, right? And the thing is, dualism is very intuitive. It fits our intuitive sense that thoughts and experiences feel categorically really different from physical things. And so it provides kind of a basis for ideas like free will, identity theories like personal identity, the possibility of life after death. It preserves the irreducibility of consciousness, the feeling that no physical description captures what it's like to be you. And I can talk about the problems of dualism, right? So philosophers and scientists sort of criticize dualism because it struggles to explain this interaction between non-physical and physical substances. So neuroscientists would show us that there's strong correlations between brain states and mental states. And this leads to what we call causal gaps. How can something outside of space and time affect neurons? It violates the principle of parsimony, Occam's razor. And since positing two substances may be unnecessary if just one can explain all phenomenon, right? And so, dualism versus other views. So if you got things like physicalism or what they used to call materialism, or they're both kind of interchangeable, these terms, that everything, including consciousness, is just physical. It's identified with the physical. Idealism, though, is that everything is ultimately mental or experiential, and that matter is a derivative, highly not intuitive, non-intuitive. Non-dualism is the idea that mind and matter are not two; they appear distinct, but they are just expressions of one unified sort of reality. So, in short, dualism would kind of say that mind and matter are distinct realities, two fundamental different aspects of existence. It tries to preserve the special nature of consciousness, but at the cost of explaining how two radically different kinds of things could even interact in principle, right? So on non-dualism, you would say that the body does the dance. Dualism does the dance, but non-dualism is the stage on which all of this activity happens. That's kind of the idea there. Um, let's see. I'm just painting, always up for an argument. Okay, cool. I am. Why don't you call it a monism? Yeah, kind of like a oneness. Yeah, you can do that. It's definitely kind of like a monism. Brooklyn Lou says this goes into all types of argument for the supernatural or against supernaturalism. Right, right, right. And I don't like that. I never liked the idea of supernaturalism, right? I've never liked it because I don't really know what that even means, right? I'm a naturalist. I think everything is natural. I think consciousness is natural. And whenever we talk about consciousness, people automatically think, oh God, we're talking about, something supernatural. It's not. It's not. It's natural, right? So that's the thing about those sort of things, right? Um, and then, we can talk about ego and non-dualism. And I want to get into this topic too a little later on. Me and Objective Ethics were actually talking about this. Um, the idea that, in the consciousness community, so to speak, right? It's all about getting rid of your ego, killing your ego. No, the ego is natural. Without the ego, you wouldn't know, what mouth to put the cup of water to. You've got to protect yourself. You've got to live in this natural world. And so I don't deny the ego. I think that everything is about balance. It's all about striking that balance and understanding that, too much of anything is poison, right? And so you don't want to be so engulfed in dualistic thinking. But on the other hand, dualism is what gives us so much meaning in life. You, me, this, that, light, darkness. These things are definitions. It's how we define things. Uh-oh. Hold on one second. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't know what happened. Um, can you hear me now? I think you can. I see the levels coming up. Sorry about that. I am having computer issues and I'm trying to invest in microphones, a backdrop. Like right now it's nighttime, so it's real dark and I don't want to move my computer anywhere because it's going to lose the signal when I did this. Yeah, it's your issue, Joel. It's your issue, man. No, I'm just kidding. But any more questions? I mean, maybe we can go into justifying idealism. Maybe how is idealism kind of more parsimonious, as I mentioned? A lot of people, just to let you know, parsimony or parsimony, however you want to pronounce. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but parsimony. The principle is based on Occam's razor, and it kind of means you wouldn't want to multiply entities beyond necessity, right? So the simplest theory that explains all the data is preferable. In philosophy, it's known as a virtue. So to ask whether idealism is parsimonious would mean, does it posit fewer fundamental kinds of things while still explaining all reality, including mind and matter? Well, dualism is automatically going to be less parsimonious because we're already dealing with at least two things. And non-duality or idealism is only talking about one thing, a monism, one thing, mono. So, an analytic maybe idea or summary on that would be like everything you absolutely know is experience. You never encounter matter outside of your experience. Therefore, positing matter as an extra substance adds an unnecessary assumption on idealism. So the most parsimonious ontology, which is metaphysics, is one where experience is fundamental and the physical world is an appearance or a pattern within that experience, right? So you could say like idealism is parsimonious because it explains both mind and matter through one ontological category, consciousness, whereas physicalism and dualism require two or more. So if you're a big fan of parsimony or parsimony, then idealism should be the more preferable metaphysic in that case. Okay, if that makes any sense. Let's see. Man, you got a link. I have some questions and working through some ideas. Yeah. Let me go ahead and post the link there, sir. Hold on just a moment. There we go, Lou. Joel has, how about the valid applications of parsimony? That's what Paul and I have been arguing about all week. That's a really good thing. So here's the thing that I would say about that. Now, when we're talking about metaphysics, we're not talking about functionality or science or anything like that. So let's get that straight first. Now, most of your scientific stuff, like let's say fluid dynamics, it used to be said that the most parsimonious explanation to explain the flow of water is that molecules, most of your molecules or all of them, are flowing in one direction, and that would explain the fluency of water, right? That's the most parsimonious view. You don't have to, explain it in terms of all these other assumptions like God is making it do that or this and that's making it do that. But as it turns out, it's actually very complicated. Fluid dynamics tells us that actually it's not true that all molecules flow in one direction, right? And so that's a problem. It tells you right there that parsimony is not always a pointer to absolute truth about things that we observe. So, parsimony is a guide. If we don't know something, like if you don't know whether there's a God, for example, um, then you should probably take the most parsimonious view and say, you know what? All I know is that I have an experience. I'm experiencing, and then there's my thoughts. And what I in my thoughts and my observations all appear in consciousness, but even those thoughts and those experiences tell me that all I see is the universe, right? Why do you have to take this extra step to say that everything is explained by the God? You can just say that everything is explained by the universe, whatever that means, right? So that's the more parsimonious explanation. But it may turn out that there is a God or that there's many gods. We don't know that. But until we do know that, my idea is to withhold beliefs because I'm just assuming. How you doing, Brooklyn? How's it going, my brother?
Hey Scott, nice to see you.
Yeah, man. Nice to see you too.
I was really interested in the non-dualism thing because I certainly am no expert on these philosophies, but I've been dealing with them quite often, as you probably know.
Yeah,
And
I've seen that.
yeah, now I got like some intuitive ideas, but I don't know how rock solid they are. Um,
Yeah.
the thing like the non-dualism, what I'm so fascinated with is it really seems to be a very important concept when dealing with religious ideas, because
Mm,
it would seem like, most of the religious people I talk to believe in a dualism, the whole soul, leaves the body type of stuff. And,
mm-hmm.
if you're a non-dualist, can you even be, let's say, a fundamentalist Christian? Is that even possible?
No, 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 no. It's there's going to be a conflict because with that version of religion, this fundamentalist sort of religions, like Islam, Christianity, even some versions of later Buddhism, things like that, Hinduism, they deal in dualities all the time. Now, some of that stuff gets interpretive, but those interpretations start to change the nature of the religion. So you've got like tomorrow, I'm going to have Paul Massell on. He's an author, and what he's trying to do is intersect theism with idealism because he likes non-dualism and all that too. But he's trying to make it fit. He wants to make it fit. You know, and so I'm really curious to see how he's going to go about doing that, if that's what he wants to come on and talk about. Um, so, because in a sense, like you said, fundamental Christianity is very dualistic. You've got God, the creator, and then you've got his creation, which are differences. Those are two things. Like, we're not God, God is not us. There's totally two different categories. And so dualism, non-dualism is not going to work in that sort of context. Hey Joel, how you doing, man?
What's up, guys? Peyton
Hi.
again.
Hey.
So I got myself muted when I'm not talking.
Yeah,
Keep the noise
all
down.
good. All good. So yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
I jumped on because I
So
wanted to
yeah,
just
so
kind of lay out some of the things I've been talking to Paul about this week. He
yes.
often brings up
Perfect.
parsimony as well, and I think if I'm being charitable to him, um, he definitely let me know that he understands that parsimony has its place, and like you said, doesn't point us to what's true. Um, what I see often is that when people bring it up, they do seem to be treating it as if it's something that points towards truth. Whereas when I look up, references for the principle, what I find seems to be uh, a preference when it comes to what ideas ought to get tested first, or what ideas ought to get our most of our consideration. When it comes to like
Mm-hmm.
looking at and considering evidence and all that. That starting with the simplest one is a good guide to go by, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's never a metric of truth in the way that we would say sound evidence does point towards truth in a reasonable way. I would
Mm-hmm.
say that parsimony doesn't do that, um, because, as you said, we can find situations where the true thing isn't the simplest thing.
Right.
It's not the most parsimonious thing, um, and so I think that's a real important thing to keep in mind as we make it part of the case.
Yep. And Lou, did you have any follow-up questions? I didn't want to leave you
Oh yeah. I
unanswered.
mean, I'm seriously working through these thoughts, trying to put them in perspective for myself. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't. There's things like when you say naturalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself a naturalist just by definition of what I see there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but as a naturalist, obviously the non-dualism fits like a glove, right? I mean, it fits right in there.
Mm-hmm.
But can you be a naturalist and be a dualist? Are there such people that would
Yes.
that argument?
Yes. They're c- they're called physicalists and materialists. Like, they're folks that they see the brain as the physical reality, the substrate, and then they think of your thoughts as what the brain causes, right? So
Okay.
you've got, you've got this dichotomy. You've got the mental world of
Mhm.
concepts and ideas. Then you've got the world of physical stuff, the atoms that make up the matter, from which the stuff arises from, the concepts and thinking and experiences arise from. So that's how dualism is sort of assumed in materialism. So yes, you're
But there are.
absolutely. Hmm.
Sorry to jump in there. I was just going to say it'd be a good time to distinguish between the different kinds of dualism that there can be. I think we've talked a lot about substance dualism versus property dualism, but I think also, there's a tendency to, excuse me, to see a dualism, as you said, between the creator and its creation, or between the mind and the body. All of these things could be framed as is this two things or is it one thing? But they're definitely very different ideas. Um, to the extent that theists are often dualists in the sense of believing they have a body and a soul.
Hmm.
Um, they're not dualists in the sense of thinking that the ontological foundation of reality is dual. They definitely think God is the ontological foundation of reality. If you
Hmm.
ask them. So to me, that's a more akin to the idea of idealism. The non-dualism idealism that Scott, I think, espouses. I could be wrong. Um, that's more about what's fundamental to reality. And to me, there's a lot of common ground between those who say the the fundamental ontological level of reality is a mind, and those
Hmm.
who say it's the mind of God. You know,
Yeah, I understand that, and that confused me for a long time. Um, because we're thinking as far as endpoints, right? Like the endpoint is God, but you could say the same thing with the universe. The endpoint is the universe. We're all part of the universe, therefore it's non-dual, right? You could reason that way. On a theistic
yeah, I
view,
was.
yeah, you could say the same thing about God. Well, if God's the endpoint and everything comes from God, then we're all kind of connected to God. So it all points back to this non-dualist idea, and that's kind of the point that I'm making, is that this
Well,
whole dualistic nature at ultimately just kind of dissolves away, and there's no real way to make sense of that.
but Scott, haven't you kind of acknowledged when we've talked about it that you do think there are dual properties to reality?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean,
That's kind of
to
kind
me,
of kind of.
that's no different than you were talking about physicalists and materialists.
Mm-hmm.
If a person is a materialist in their ontology, then that's not a dual property. They're saying matter is the fundamental thing. There's one fundamental thing, and it's matter,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So they go on to say, well, it's making other kinds of things that are worth calling mental, but that's more of a property of matter, kind of downstream dualism. Same move that I feel like you're making, which is to say, well, you start with one substance, but then you end up with dual properties. Isn't that a
So let's
fair
let's walk.
kind of analogy
Yeah,
to
yeah,
draw?
yeah. That's that makes a lot of sense. So let's walk through it from the beginning, right?
Mhm.
So let's just say, like, dualism begins with the idea that there are distinctions: mind versus matter, self versus world, good versus evil, subject versus object. And this is very useful for analysis and survival. But ultimately, it will lead to paradoxes, like you're kind of pointing out in a way. If mind and matter are separate, how do they interact? If self and world are divided, where exactly is that boundary? So when reason follows
Well,
dualism to its limits, it kind of hits a self contradiction. That's the first step in the dissolution. Thought discovers its own
those.
incompleteness, is what I'm saying.
Hmm. thought discovers its own incompleteness. What
Hmm.
does that mean in relation to what we're saying here?
Well, because we're looking at what we're actually trying to define here. We're defining things, right? So at that point, the intellect starts to suspect that the distinctions between two was never really absolute, only functional, right? So dualism sort of refutes itself by revealing that the very act of comparison is going to require an underlying unity between what's compared. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Maybe I lost your train of thought. I thought we were doing kind of a comparison, kind of a
Hmm.
beat by beat between your view of idealism and, kind of a traditional materialist metaphysics to say, how much are these things similar in terms of where are they dualistic and where are they not dualistic? You had characterized them as being dualistic, physicalism and materialism, and I was just kind of pointing out that if the person is saying, no, there's one fundamental substance and it's material, then that's not non-dualism. That's a monistic ontology, substance
Hmm.
ontology, right? And that is a same category as you at
Well,
that
I
point,
see.
isn't it?
Right. So like I said, I'm going to walk through this from the beginning and we'll get there. So,
Oh, okay.
like, right. So let's take step two. So we have the experiential level. And hey, Sophia, how you doing? I wonder if she can hear me.
Hey, Sophia.
Mic's off. Sophia's mic.
She's muted. Let me
Yeah.
remove and put back. I hate this. It's probably my thing. But okay, let me try to get back on track while she's doing that. So let's take step two. So then let's try to see through this dichotomy or this split. So
So can you give me like an
phenomenal.
overview of what is this step by step you're going through here? Where did we
Yeah, so I'm just kind
how
of
did we get to
walking you
this?
through. So I'm kind of walking you through the thought about dualism, right? How we're and non-dualism, how we're able to make sense of these two concepts and where we can end up or where we can conclude so far, right? Reasonably. So like we could take like the experiential level, like seeing through this split. So maybe you can agree like the subject who sees, right? The one who's observing. And
Yeah,
then
that's how I think of subject object relationship.
yeah, and the object is the thing that are seen, right?
Or we could
So
say experience.
right. So these two things are both contents of awareness. They arise together in your experience. So when you see a tree, there's not actually you here and tree there. There's just a unified event, the seeing of the tree, right? So if you notice, right? If you notice carefully, like when you sense of the me perceiving is itself a perception. It's part of that same field. So duality sort of collapses into non-duality, not by destroying these differences, but just by realizing that both poles of differences already exist within that one awareness. That's what it really means. So there's a process, to that. There's a process that we can kind of go through.
Okay.
So
Sounds
let's
like
talk
you're
about
saying that there's this kind of dual aspect of experience, which is the subject object um, pairing. And then you're saying, but because these things are both part of one thing, experience,
right, right.
therefore it's not really two things, it's really one thing, right?
Epistemically,
Is that
yeah,
what you're saying?
right.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm. So then we
But
take
but
it to the third
maybe
step.
we're okay.
So I
Yeah.
want to get to the third step because we're going to get into a problem when we talk
You're gonna
about
land on this.
ontology.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So we're going to talk about ontology. So at the ontological level, which is unity as the ground. So once the above, once you see that being itself is understood as non-dual, like you just said, mind and matter are not really two substances, but two appearances or aspects of a single underlying reality, like kind of like the waves in the ocean that I always talk about. So
Mhm.
this doesn't really erase the experiential contrast between these things. It's just a recontextualizing of it, if that makes sense. So these opposites are seen as sort of complementary expressions of that one process, like light and dark define each other, self and other imply each other, form and emptiness sort of impenetrate. And that's why in many non-dualistic traditions it'll say like something like, well, when you understand two, you return to one. When you understand one, you find two were never really apart in that process. So then we kind of get into that dissolution process. Like, here's maybe a simple sequence that could show how dualism would naturally dissolve. So let's take differentiation. You first notice contrast, like the subject, object, the good and the bad, blah, blah, blah. Then we have the relation. You see that each pole sort of defines the other, they're interdependent. And then we can integrate. You recognize that they arise together in that singular consciousness or experience. And then the transcendent quality is sort of like just realizing the field itself is the real. The poles are its play. So duality isn't really destroyed, it's kind of seen through. It's kind of like realizing waves were never really separated from the water. You know, they're all part of the same system, the same process. So dualism sort of dissolves this non-duality when the mind recognizes that every pair, as you say, of opposites are two expressions of the same sort of underlying awareness, distinctions within, not really divisions between them, you know? Does that make any sense?
I mean, I think I understand. You're giving me a little bit of a rundown of what you believe in and why you see it that way, right?
Right.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid,
Yep.
like maybe my question really wasn't clear. Um, what I'm doing is just kind of saying you guys were talking about the terms, and you were saying, theists are this and materialists are that, dualists, right? And I was kind of saying the way in which these other people are dualists doesn't seem very different from the way that your position looks when we compare them on the things, right? So a breakdown of what you believe is certainly helpful, but again, it's just kind of, I'm saying, you're saying there's a single fundamental substance that has all these, whether you want to consider them dual properties or just dual appearances, either way, on the experience and that we're on, we're definitely getting the appearance of dual things, multiple things. Um, so I guess what I'm really trying to ask, um, is where do you see that distinction of, hey, I'm a non-dualist, I'm a monist, but if someone were to say matter is the single fundamental substance of reality, why that wouldn't also qualify as a non-dualism for you, as you understand the terms, right?
Um, yeah, it can, yeah, it can be, yeah, it can
Oh,
be a
okay.
monism. It is. Like, yeah, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Shermer. He's a materialist monist. So there you go. Like, it's a known thing. We just have to make sense of these things. We can do an analytic comparison. But I want to let Sophia jump in. I've been talking too much. Maybe she's got some thoughts that could make some sense too. What do you think so far about this convo?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what his question is. I'm confused.
Maybe just restate it for her because she jumped in
Hello,
kind of late.
everyone.
Hey, Sophia.
Hi.
And I didn't mean to jump all over Lou's question. I don't know if that, it your response kind of brought up my point of clarity, but I don't mean to overtake,
No,
override what he was talking about there.
well, I was thinking maybe through our questions, because Lou is kind of struggling with these sort of concepts, and I kind of thought maybe by us having this interaction back and forth, it may kind of
Hmm.
help Lou kind of see the territory that we're going
I thought y'all
over.
were doing a survey.
We were. I finished it, and then I saw everybody jumped in, so I was like, well, why end the stream now? It was only 6 minutes, so let's jump.
Friday
Let's
night
have every.
party.
Oh,
Yeah, we turn it into
well,
a
I sure
party.
have to do the damn survey,
Well, why don't you do the?
but
Why
I'm
don't
just
we
gonna.
do? You want to go ahead?
Nah, hell no, that shit too long. I'm just gonna
Once you ask
comment
her the questions, give
in
her answers live.
Yeah. Good idea, Joel. Thanks, man.
come on, that's gonna take forever.
No, it's
Put you
just
on the
like
spot.
it's only a few questions. I was looking at it. I was thinking it was long too, but when I went to the
But we ain't
description,
got the same shit. 'Cause my shit long as hell.
oh
It's
really?
like 30
Oh,
fucking
okay.
questions.
Wow. So I must have the wrong thing because I went to the description in the in that video for doing the survey, and it's
Yeah,
just a few
that's
questions.
where I
So
got
I
it
must
from
be look.
too. That's not a few
Oh, okay.
questions. How many
Yeah.
questions did you think it is?
I didn't really count them, but they're really easy to get through. I only did half of them last time. So like it starts off with "Are you a naturalist?" Right? Like your
If I
preferred
remember it correct.
label. Yeah, and it ends with what do you think non-believers misunderstand about believers? So yeah, I think it's like, well, let me count them up. Hold on. One, two, three,
Are they talking about
four,
like
five, six.
non-believers in religion or God or what?
16, 17, 18,
Yeah, it's a
19,
survey
20,
for
21,
atheists,
22.
so I think in that
Yeah.
context, it's talking about belief in God.
Yeah, it's like 30 questions. You're right.
Oh,
It's like 30. Yeah, it's not that much,
you
but
said you not slap yourself 3 times.
pow, pow, pow. Hit me again,
Yeah,
baby.
I don't think I answered 30 questions when I did it.
Yeah, it's like 25 or something like that. Uh,
Yeah, but I knew it wasn't just a few. But I mean, we can go through it. I don't care.
do you mind, Lou?
If y'all
Lou? Well,
want
let me
to.
ask Lou.
I
Lou
I
had
didn't
a.
go through it, so I would just give you an answer off the cuff because I didn't like actually look at the questions. So.
Okay, okay.
I haven't
Well,
either.
let's
That
go.
that makes two of us. You.
Well,
Okay.
we're all in
I
the. Well,
glanced
we're
at
all in
the.
that
I
same.
glanced at the email. Sorry,
Well, we're all sort of atheists, naturalists. So maybe we can just do a round
I'm
table,
not an
and
atheist.
that'll. Well, you know what I mean, like an unbeliever in, I don't know, Christianity and stuff.
God.
Yeah, and
Sophia,
God
do
and
you believe in
stuff.
God?
Do I believe in God?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
never heard you say that
Not.
before.
No, I don't believe in God in the sense
Well, then you're
of
an atheist.
But yeah, I'm more of a
Well, I take
heretic
that
though
back.
or something.
I think though, I think this is the terms though. Philosophically, atheism means there is no God. And agnosticism is the fact, well, no, I take that back. Atheism is the fact that you don't believe in God. And then agnosticism is you don't know there's a God. And so I would say my agnosticism informs my atheism. So since I don't really believe in things I don't know, right? Because that would be kind of asinine on the way I look at it. But everybody's different, so I can't really speak for everybody, right? But
I'm trying to pull up these questions.
yeah, I got them right here if you
Oh
want
yeah,
me to.
that's a survey for non-believers and atheists, agnostics. Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah. So you fall into that category. Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
let me ask. let's start with Lou and we'll go around. You want to do that?
Go ahead. I'll fire you off answers,
Oh, okay.
or maybe
So
ask you a question if I
Lou is
don't
always
understand it.
ready.
so what is your preferred label if you have one, Lou?
For religious stuff, agnostic, atheist.
Okay. All right. And you, Sophia?
I guess idealist slash mystic rationalist, just to make it sound fancy.
Mystic.
That's fancy.
You know I gotta be special.
My internet is really horrible. Hold on. I'm gonna close some tabs out. Maybe that'll help. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Oh,
I do.
I think Sophia froze. Let me put her back in.
You just got rid of
All
me.
right. Okay.
Yes, he's back.
Yeah, you're back. Okay. So, what is your preferred label according to that questionnaire it asks? Sophia, can you hear me?
What? I
What is
just
your
said that.
preferred? Okay, I didn't hear you. I dropped off. Okay, Joel, what is your
Oh,
preferred
you
label
didn't?
if you have one? Mm-mm.
Hey, yeah. I describe myself as an atheist and an agnostic. I know a lot of people kind of put it on there like it's a modifier of, how certain you feel about the position, but I tend to look at them as slightly different things. Where one is saying I don't believe in God, and the other one is not quite the same way Scott phrased it, but instead more of like a position on belief that says I don't accept things as true without the good reasons to think they're true. I think that's, when it was originally coined, kind of given a definition closer to that, and it's become synonymous with people who are kind of saying, "Well, I'm not sure about this," or people who are saying, "Well, I don't know if it's true or not. I'm not going to take a position. I'm agnostic." But and so I get that people use it all those ways, but the way I use it is a little different, um, but still in line with the traditional use of
Okay. So, how long have you been eating babies?
it. Well, interesting story. I actually, I grew up a Christian. I stopped believing around 19 or 20 years old. And then I spent quite a few years with kind of that understanding of atheism as a positive belief and agnosticism as that in between position, and kind of saying, no, no,
Uh huh.
I'm an agnostic. I'm not an atheist. Well, eventually someone
Right.
showed me a dictionary. And so I just kind of said, oh, okay, I guess I am an atheist. But all of this kind of online vitriol
Okay.
was
Cool.
new to me at that point. Finding all the kind of memes about eating babies and the videos of famous atheists, uh, you know, hitch slapping each other, whatever. Um, that all kind of hit me at the point that I had someone in my life who was
I don't see
challenging me.
anything wrong with eating babies.
Well,
I mean, I don't
I'll
see
eat
anything
anything if
wrong
you
with it.
cook it right.
I don't understand. Yeah, I mean, what's the big deal? Shit. People are so judgmental. All right, let's go on to the next
Subjective,
question.
subjective morality, my friend.
Yeah. Oh God, here we go again. Remember,
Oh
I
God.
called in the Lose channel the other day with the title "I'm God,"
Yeah, I
and I
heard
was
about
like,
that shit.
"Dude, I'm right here. If y'all have any questions about me, then just ask me. I'm right here." All right, so all right, so are you a naturalist? Let's start with Lou. He already answered that. Yes.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
Are you a materialist?
what's the difference between naturalist and materialist? See, I don't really know.
Right? I just
Yeah. So a materialist is just to say that matter is it's a metaphysic. So naturalist is to say that well, I guess maybe they're all sort of metaphysics in a way. I don't know. That's a good question. It's a good question,
I
actually. Now
mean,
that I
you could
think about
just
it.
as easily be saying that the fundamental thing of reality is material or physical. And in a lot of cases, people would mean the same thing by saying it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you could be a naturalist and you could be a materialist. You could be a naturalist and be an idealist. You could be a naturalist and be a theist.
The
So these
part I
things are.
don't understand is how, I mean, I just probably don't know enough about these words. I don't understand how you could be a naturalist and a non materialist. Like, how would that
that's
work?
Mm,
where I come in at.
yeah, go ahead, Sophia. Explain.
Because I would be considered a naturalist, but not in the strict materialist sense, because I see nature as consciousness externalized. You know, the whole thing about the artist and the canvas. So that would make me, according to definitions that I don't really know that well either, but that would actually make me a panpsychic naturalist, not a reductionist one. And y'all can figure that out yourself because I don't even use those kind of terms.
Neither do I, unless I want to sound smart.
Right?
Yeah.
And we all know I ain't that smart. I'm a dumb idealist.
Well,
What
nature
about
is a
you, Joe?
really, I, uh, well, in terms of my position, the only distinction I think is important here is that I'm kind of a naturalist and the materialist in a softer sense than in a harder sense, in that I don't make a claim that everything is natural or that nothing exists that isn't natural, but instead I just kind of say, I'm only convinced of natural things because that's all I see evidence for. Does that make kind of
That's
sense of?
Yeah.
that's the type of naturalist I am.
There
Yeah.
you go. We're on the same page there. I feel like that's the reasonable thing. I would, anytime I hear people making claims about, there couldn't be anything else out there that I don't know about, I clam up.
Yeah. Cause yeah. Let's go to the next one. So, has Richard Dawkins said or wrote um anything that influenced your deconversion if you had one? Lou, like, how much do you care about what Dawkins says? Lou.
I remember when I was a Christian hearing some of Dawkins talking. I never read one of his books, but he has not too much influence. So
Okay.
little
What
bit.
about you, Sophie?
I don't know. I just
Yeah.
stopped being a Christian because it didn't make any sense. I
Yeah.
relied on my own fucking good senses. I don't even know nothing about that dude.
Oh, yeah. He's an evolutionist. He's like a biologist and author and public speaker. And what about you, Joe?
Well,
Yeah, not a whole lot. Obviously he's one of the guys that you see videos of him talking or debating people. So, I'm not going to say I haven't heard him talk,
I mean,
but
I might have seen him, but I don't really know him.
How much
yeah.
has Darth Dawkins influenced you?
I've never heard
That's the
him
question.
talk. I've never
Yeah.
even heard
That's
Doc
good.
Dawkins.
He's good comedy, man.
Oh man, Lou, you don't. He's a precept.
Yeah, no, I've heard about
Oh,
him, and I
Lou
heard
doesn't
he's
know
really
him?
obnoxious. But
Oh,
Oh,
he's
yeah, he's
horrible.
ridiculous.
He is horrible, horrible. I
You
don't
gotta
even
see
want.
him one time.
You got to see him. You got to pull up some of his videos. That guy, he's amazingly crazy. But okay,
He's a troll. That's what he
yeah,
is.
oh yeah, to say the least. Okay, so what does the word atheist mean to you, Lou?
simple lack of belief in a God.
And you, Sophia?
Same thing, really. You don't believe in a God, especially a religious God.
Yeah, because the A means no, and theist means theism. So you just no theist. It's just one. It's like a claim that you reject. That's all it really means. It's that one singular claim. It has nothing to do about your politics. It says nothing about your metaphysics or anything like that. Well, I guess at least the God thing does. What about you, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, I accept that it has more than one uh, correct meaning. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the one I use for myself is the just don't believe, because I think it would go too far of what can be reasonably concluded to say, well, there must be no God. So I can't get there.
You could be risking making God very sad. You know, if my kids didn't believe in me, I'd be very sad, and I am. All right.
Yeah. What would you do about it?
Yeah, I'd have to put them in
You like
hell.
show
I'd pour
up and like
gasoline on
appear
them.
to them, right?
Yeah, or just throw them in the fire. Bet your ass believe me now.
I like a problem.
And you know why, Scott? Because your ego would be that big.
Yes.
That's the
Yeah,
part of
God
the God that
sized.
always gets to me. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's already
Petty.
God. He's already God. I mean, what is it? He needs everyone to, say the
Yeah.
right thing and uh,
Yeah. Why did
Bow
you?
down and
Yeah,
worship.
that's why he created you to glorify himself. He needed somebody
I'm
to
pretty
kiss his
sure that
ass.
I'm pretty sure that we as humans created God. So honestly, he should be kneeling to us.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're the gods. All right. Next question. What do you think the word atheist means to most of your believers out there?
Seems to me that a lot of them seem to think uh,
Heathen.
it means that hard atheism thing where you cannot you can prove that there is no God.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what a lot of them think.
Yeah. What do you think, Sophia?
Yeah, I agree. That's the way I was taught the word
Yeah.
meant in church growing up.
Um, I would say that it also means that to them, obviously, that you're some kind of rebellious Satanist or some shit, or that you worship Satan, and that you can't
Yeah.
be, treated like a human being and respect because you're an outcast and empty and not full of the light of the Lord and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, their Bible
All right.
has some nasty things to say about people that don't believe.
Yes, it does.
And we'll knock two of these out in one because we're going to save time this way. What do you think the word agnostic means to you? And then what do you think the word agnostic means to believers? And what do you think the word agnostic means to agnostics? Go ahead, Lou. Or Steve.
I think I think the word agnostic means uh, knowledge or having pertaining to knowledge. So when I say I'm agnostic, I'm simply saying um, I'm not absolutely sure on these things, and I don't think anyone can be absolutely sure. And
Right.
what I think the believers think about agnostic is someone who doesn't care about these things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, an agnostic. What does an agnostic think? I mean, I guess it would. I'm agnostic, so I call it, just something that I'm not ready to say that I absolutely know these things. So
Right on. What about you, Sophia? Those three
Pretty
questions.
much the same thing. I think that an agnostic is just someone who doesn't think they can make claims about the ultimate truth and say they really know. They just don't know or aren't sure.
I don't know is not a good answer. No, I'm just kidding.
I know I said that to Joel. I was like, I don't know. It's not good enough, Joel. You got to give me something.
It's not good enough, Joel. What's your answers, Joel?
That's why I'm single now. Because I can't stand that
Yeah.
shit. What you
Shit or
eat
get off
last
the
night?
pot,
I don't
right?
know.
Yeah. That's a perfect answer. What does agnostic mean? It means shit or get off the pot, motherfucker.
I can't decide. I don't know which one I got to do. I
See,
kind of already gave. I kind of already gave my personal. This is what I mean by my. When I say agnostic, I do
mm,
think that believers and religious people probably way more tend to use it as that in between position of I don't think this is true, but I also don't think it's false. They would just kind of say, oh, all of that whole position is agnostic. Um,
mm,
Although I've also heard theists say that they are agnostic about their beliefs in the same
yeah.
way that I think Lou said he means it about himself. He just means, I'm not really sure about this. I can't claim to know it because I realize that the evidence isn't there for me to demonstrate it. You know what I mean? And
Those are what those are what you call weak-kneed, flag-waving Christians.
well, maybe,
That's how.
or are they being real about what kind of evidence is there, and what it's, how good is it?
Yeah. I mean, you know,
And a lot of
it's
Christians will say, hey, it's really about faith, and if we had the kind of evidence that would warrant saying that we knew, then that wouldn't be faith.
yeah.
So I think it's built into some of their theology.
Well,
I
I
I
think
say agnostic.
some preacher told me and Lou that uh that you know, damn, I forgot my thought. Go ahead, Lou.
I was just going to say I think that many Christians are agnostic in the way that I describe agnostic.
Hmm.
They don't want to admit it, but a lot of people would say, well, I really don't know, but I believe in faith. And if you say that, you're not really agnostic to me. I mean, you are agnostic. You're
Mm.
And see,
agnostic.
that's the
Yeah,
exact
but at
opposite.
the same time, they be going super hard to say they're agnostic though, man.
Who?
They be ready to die for that shit. Christians or religious people. To say it's just faith, I mean, they be going super hard.
That's what I meant to
Like
say.
they really
Lou, some preacher told me and Lou one time we were talking to this Christian and he said, "No, Lou, Scott, faith is the evidence."
Right.
Remember
That's what I'm
that?
talking. That's what I'm
And we
Well,
were
talking.
that's
like,
the
"Well, that
Bible
means
verse.
you can just believe anything."
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You know.
I don't know, that's just crazy.
Right?
But see, one thing I
Yeah,
wanted to
that didn't
point
make a
out.
lot of sense. Okay, so skeptic. Go ahead.
Sorry, but oh, I was just going to say, this idea of like
I was.
I'm
Mhm.
agnostic about this conclusion, like in the way that a theist would say, I believe in God, but I don't know, because I recognize that there's not enough evidence for me to say that I know. This is kind of the exact opposite of the principle that I was expressing of agnosticism, which is to say we don't accept things in that position. That's kind of the whole thing that I find there is that when you recognize that there's not enough evidence to demonstrate something that you ought to be able to demonstrate, then you shouldn't believe it. You should just say,
Mhm.
I don't accept that.
Yeah. And see, let's go to the next question. So I'm going to ask these three because they're all kind of related. What does the word skeptic mean to you? What do you think the word skeptic means to other skeptics? And what do you think the word word skeptic means to the believer? Go ahead.
Well, I call myself Brooklyn Lou the Skeptic because I think skeptic means someone who questions everything. So pretty much that's my definition of skeptic. I think skeptics, I think, see it that way, the same way I do, I think. And then believers think skepticism is a refusal to believe anything.
Mm-hmm. Hyper skeptics.
They call it
What do you think, Sophia?
cynics. You know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
cynicism.
you would never believe anything, so it doesn't, doesn't matter.
I think a skeptic doesn't take anything at face value. They need to see evidence for them to believe it. That doesn't mean that they can't believe something. They just need the evidence for it. And of course, that's probably how other skeptics feel. And then the believers, they will see you as a faithless person because you're a skeptic, for sure.
That you refuse to
Yeah,
believe
it's a moral
something.
problem.
That's what I think
Yeah,
they see.
Mm-hmm.
you're just a
Yes, yes.
heathen, not
Because it's so
uncut. You
obvious.
don't have no faith. Ye of little faith.
It's so obvious that Jesus rose from the dead. You're just putting your head in the sand. Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think skepticism is similar to what Lou said, that you have to be willing to question anything, that nothing is going to be sacred. Um, I also think it's about preferring true conclusions and avoiding false ones, kind of like the famous saying goes. And also recognizing that there are sound ways to get to truth, reasonable conclusions, and there are unsound ways, and being careful about avoiding what you know is not reliable is part of skepticism for me.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
and then
being self-aware. Yeah.
yep, and then I think I would hope that most skeptics view that the same way, but I'm afraid that a lot of people call themselves skeptics that would really accept all kinds of things that I think are not justified, whether it's somebody who said, "Oh, I think the world is flat. I think the Earth is flat because I'm a skeptic. I don't believe what scientists tell me. That kind of thing. That to
Mm.
me that's missing the mark badly.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, yeah, and again, I think somebody already kind of said when Christians talk about skeptics, sometimes they're just using it synonymously with someone who doesn't believe what I believe. You know.
Yeah.
Um, they also would, like you said, make it almost synonymous with cynicism, where you said, nothing could convince me of this, or I
Yeah.
refuse to believe that. I'm incredulous towards
Yeah.
that. I won't believe it. That kind
Yeah.
of
It's
thing. They
yeah,
would kind of
conflation error.
characterize it that way,
Yeah. It's like a big
because to
conflation.
them, it's so obvious, and if you don't believe it, there's got to be something going on.
Okay. Well, since you guys are pretty much defined yourselves these ways and you've got answers for those things, then let me ask you the next question is how much time, broadly speaking, have you studied the following: science, cosmology, biology, informal logic, formal logic, philosophy, epistemology, world religions, the Bible, and other holy books? How much dedication have you put into that stuff there, Lou?
Oh boy. I mean, definitely haven't studied those all of those things in depth, but I put a lot of time into studying religion and uh,
Mm-hmm.
and science. I mean, probably not too much on science, but I remember putting in a lot of time on evolution. So
Mm-hmm.
I studied that for quite a while. Um, The other subjects were philosophy. I get drawn into philosophy, so I start studying it as I need to, you know.
Well, you're getting. I've seen a few videos, and it looks like they're pretty much those Phil Bros are trying to pound you on the head about that one.
Yeah,
That's why I was
I get
saying on my
sucked
comments.
into
Yeah,
philosophy, and then I
get
have
sucked
to
in. Yeah.
I really got to think about it. And I find philosophy to be wonderful thoughts and experimentation with your mind and what you think. But I don't find philosophy actually concluding a whole lot. So that's my
So
problem with
that's your
philosophy.
well, that's your philosophical conclusion.
Yeah.
What about you, Sophia?
And I mean, I like biology, but I've extensively studied it, maybe specific topics. So I would say basic, um, informal and formal logic. What does that even mean? Like what's informal and formal logic? What is that?
Formal is like
Like what is that
syllogisms,
saying?
like
I don't know.
premises and conclusions, whereas informal is, inferences
Premises.
outside of those kind of structures.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very structured.
I
Like
I'd
you're
say moderate.
creating. Yeah.
Isn't formal logic ground down to about three different things, like law of no contradiction, identity, and the excluded middle? Isn't that like logic, formal logic?
I think
Those
those
are the
things
laws
apply
of
to
logic.
both. I think those things apply to both formal and informal logic.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the distinction where you're talking about formal and informal, they're talking about the form of an argument. And so it's talking, when people talk about a syllogism and they're talking
Yeah,
about these premises lead to this conclusion, that's
yeah.
that's all it means by formal. It's a lot simpler than it sounds.
Syllogisms, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
If P to Q and P therefore Q. Like if it rains, the ground gets wet. It rains, therefore the ground is wet. That's like a formal logical structure.
Or all men are mortal and
Yeah,
Socrates
what
is a man, therefore
is
Socrates is mortal. That's
Right.
that's a formal expression of logic.
That's right. That's right. All right. Next questions.
Okie dokie. On to the next
Okie
one.
dokie then.
Philosophy, we already
Well, and I
know.
got a short answer for you, Scott.
We already know
Uh,
you
Yeah.
don't do a lot of
Go for it.
philosophy.
yeah, in terms of, y'all know
Huh?
I like to spend a lot of time uh, studying idealism and non-dualistic metaphysics. That's really my where my my focus is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey,
That's
So
why
I
I hang
wasn't
out with you
done. Like
guys.
y'all skipped me over.
did we skip you over? Go ahead, Sophia. How much do you study
Yeah, I only got
cosmology,
to freaking
biology?
informal.
Yeah.
There's there's still philosophy, epistemology, world
Oh,
religions, the Bible, and the other holy books.
Yeah.
yeah.
Damn, get on it. Come on.
Let's, let's
Well,
go.
I was trying.
Chop chop.
I was trying.
Yeah. In philosophy,
Yeah.
there is no try.
Okay. Y'all know
There's only
I'm
there's only do.
a
Are you roboting? Let me remove you
uh,
before you come back. Hold on. I'm gonna remove you and bring you back. Hold on. Yeah, her internet problems. I'm gonna bring her back when her situation clears up. I'm just waiting. Come on, Sophia. Yeah, add her and see what happens.
you sure that's not
Yeah, you're roboting. Go ahead and leave and come back in before we start. StreamYard is such a resource hog; it kills everybody. I got to find another platform because maybe there's something else that wouldn't be so, you know, um, unstable.
I noticed it really takes my battery down when I sit on here with you
Yeah, it
guys.
does.
I came back
Yep.
one day and I was like, holy shit, it's gone.
Mm-hmm. That's what happens. Yeah, it's very inconvenient. Where's Jesus when you need him? All right, here she comes. Come on, come on, come on. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
All right, Sophia, you're back.
Back.
All right, Sophia, you're back. Can you
All right,
hear us
Sophia,
okay?
you're back. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, sorry about that.
You might need to close a tab or
You
two.
might need to close a
Somebody's,
tab
I
or
can hear
two.
an echo.
Somebody's.
Still lagging? What's happening?
I hear an echo on my end, but go
Here,
ahead. I think that might
go
just
ahead.
be me.
I think that.
I think someone
I think
I think
someone.
someone has
Someone
YouTube on.
has YouTube.
Not
Like
me.
when you're talking on
Like,
StreamYard, it's like you really should have
it's
just
like
StreamYard on.
really not just what you want on.
What about now?
You
There we
sound
go. That's better.
fine, but I heard an echo when Scott was talking before.
Yeah, I think the echo
Hello?
went away. Hello?
Yeah.
All right, we're all waiting to hear what have you studied, Sophia?
What have you studied, Sophia?
Let me add her to the stage back.
Each back.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Joel said, what did I
There we go.
study?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
I studied psychology.
Okay. So,
Okay.
not a whole
So,
lot of cosmology and
not
stuff
a
like
whole
that.
lot of cosmology and stuff like that.
No. I was going through the list and like to make it quick. I didn't study any of this shit very much, except for there are some scientific things that I'm very interested in. I'm definitely into philosophy and epistemology and definitely world religions and the Bible. I know it like the back of my hand pretty much. So yeah, there you go. On to Joel now, since I kept everybody fucked up with this internet.
Yeah, we don't want to agitate folks.
Yeah, we don't want to agitate folks.
He gets agitated if you talk about the God molecule. Why?
I
Who
don't
is
know.
that guy?
Oh, I didn't know
I
I
don't
was
know.
muted.
Oh, I didn't know I was muted.
Oh, I was just
I've
gonna
got some.
say
Oh, I was just gonna say
that yeah, I've
that
got some similar interests in a lot
yeah,
of
I've got
these
some similar
subjects.
interests in a lot of these subjects.
And so I've spent some time,
And so
reading or
I've spent some
studying on
time,
it,
reading or studying on it,
having conversations, but
having
not a whole lot of
conversations,
formal
but
education on
not a
it.
whole lot of formal education on it.
Well, I only have formal education on psychology, but everything else I'm kind of self-taught.
Yeah, I think a
And
lot of
then
us
are
are
we
that
on?
Yeah,
way.
I think a lot of us are that way.
Yeah.
I am
Are
mostly
we on to?
I am
self-taught as
mostly
well.
self-taught as well.
Are we on to the next ones? Because there's so many, man. We're gonna be here till tomorrow, y'all.
I haven't heard Scott.
Scott done went to sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, he froze. Okay, but where we left off before my internet stopped, did we do what do you think God is yet?
No, let's do that.
Okay, Joel, what do you think God is?
Well, as I said, I wouldn't rule out the non-existence of God, but I do think it's okay to look around at all the various religions, especially, it seems clear when you look at the ones from history that have, just fallen off. It's real easy to just say it looks like people are making stuff up.
Right. What about you, Lou?
I think God is a concept in people's minds. And that's about
Okay.
it.
And then me as a mystic, I see God as well, I don't really use the word God, but I don't necessarily have a problem with the word unless it's tied to like religion, Abrahamic religions especially. But I think that if an idealist were to speak about God, they would see God as a symbolic representation of consciousness. That's the furthest I would go if I were to ever use the term seeing consciousness as primary. And that's my stance.
What do you think the distinction is between a God and a greater mind? It's kind of like a primary consciousness.
I mean, there is definitely not, it seems very similar because they believe God is primary, right? But the characteristics of that God reminds me more of a psychopath, and I highly doubt that's God. So, I mean, if you want to call something that's supreme God, go for it. But I mean, I don't really deal with that. I don't really call it God. Does that make
I
sense?
guess what I was, yeah. I was wondering if the distinction was that like a God would be like a person,
Yeah.
whereas a greater mind is more of like a soup of consciousness, not, kind of different from what we think of as a person.
Yes, I would
But I
agree
didn't
with
know how
that.
you view that.
Yeah, I would view it like that. A greater mind or consciousness as a whole, that's completely different than some God, sky daddy in the sky. That's a person. And yeah, I that's how I would distinguish it.
What would a consciousness that wasn't a person be like? It's kind of hard for me to imagine what that would be like.
It would just be.
Hmm.
It just is. Without all the concepts that we experience as this individual, it's just
Isn't
oneness, wholeness.
isn't it kind of entailed when you say that something is conscious, that there's something that it is to be like that thing?
I mean, I can only tell you from my personal experience what I've experienced when the ego dissolves. It's not that you no longer exist, you still exist, but you no longer identify with your, I guess, earthly identity, right? All that kind of means nothing. And you just experience the I am. You are. You just are. That's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just are.
but that's you as
Existence,
a
existence
person.
just goes on. Yeah, you don't experience yourself as a person anymore. You just are. You just become part of the ocean.
Hmm. Okay.
It's kind of like, when you close your eyes. Okay, like picture a room that's like pitch black, right? And you're in this room and you can't see anything. You can't even see the hand in front of your face, but you still know you are. It's kind of like that. And I know that's not the exact perfect
I think
scenario,
that
but it's
that's what
similar.
it's like to be. That's what it's like to be the greater mind. Is like a person sitting in a like a sensory deprivation situation.
Kind of, it can be, yeah. It can be just devoid of anything. It can be, yeah.
But okay, so it does kind of sound like it's like a person then, right? Because I mean that's what it's like.
No, I mean, I guess, but I mean, like I said, you no longer identify with the things we do here, your name or your job or anything like that. You just are. I mean, I don't know how to put that into words. Consciousness is hard to explain as it is, let alone
Oh well,
what consciousness
yeah.
is outside of the body.
Okay, Sophia.
What is it like to be
Isn't
fundamentally
that like
conscious
being
then?
high?
Don't go there, Lou. No, I don't even get high. I mean, what are you thinking? What do you think of me? I'm not some 70s hippie.
No, no,
I don't even
no.
smoke.
I'm speaking for myself, for real. When I'm
No, no, no,
totally
no.
high, it's like I'm not relating to the things you spoke about. I'm
That's
just,
more of like it's more like what you're describing with a high is more like a dissociation. But when it comes to being like just pure consciousness, you just feel like you're part of the whole. It's like being in the womb of the universe. It's like you just are a part of everything. There's no feeling of separation. It's all love. It's all wholeness. It's just like you are and you feel whole and you lack nothing. You need nothing. It's hard to explain. I don't know how to explain it. It's
So
not like a high
actually,
where you just dissociate. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I've got a horrible echo. I might have to reboot before I jump in because I can't really. Let me reboot. I'll be back.
Well, just tell the question because I can hear you. Come on. So we have something
Oh,
to talk about.
yeah, yeah. I tried closing out my YouTube, but it didn't help. So let me pull that back up. I'm still echoing on my end. I don't know why. And my computer's taking forever.
the echo is on Scott and Joel. And
Hey
me
guys, I'm
maybe.
gonna pop off anyway. I appreciate y'all taking all my questions and everything as always.
Okay.
Sure.
And y'all have a good night. I'll talk to you again later.
All right, Joe, come on through tomorrow. We're gonna have a good one.
Oh yeah,
10
you know I
a.m.
gotta mess with Paul.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. We are
exactly.
interviewing Paul tomorrow.
Later, guys.
Later on,
Bye.
brother.
Later. But yeah, Lou, that's the best way I could describe it. And I mean, obviously, that could have been complete, a total hallucination. You know what I mean? Um, but I don't know. I don't know. It just
Here's,
seemed really fucking real.
I was talking about myself, by the way, but what I experience when I'm high, and I'm talking about, cannabis, let's say, but I smoke till I drift away mentally, where it's just kind of like you exist, but it's not like you're worried about anything. Yeah.
Right. But that's like I actually have opposite experience. That's why I don't smoke. Um, because I get like extremely self-aware and then I start getting paranoid and terrified
Yes,
and
I've heard of
all.
that.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I already have PTSD, so I heard that when you do the herb, it can kind of amplify any type of psychological thing that you already got going on. And then I heard that there are different ones. There's the one that's called sativa, and then the other one is something else, and they have different effects and stuff. But it just doesn't like, I just don't do well with it, so I don't even mess with it. I really don't like my consciousness to be altered at all. I don't drink or any of that. But um I do like psychedelics, and psychedelics they seem to have a really big healing effect on my mind, my psyche, my body. Um, I don't know. They're amazing. They reveal things that they expand my mind, and they give me this insight about myself, even about the world and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. They just
I
make you more in balance and harmony with yourself mainly, you know?
see what's really strange
See,
is
what's really strange
I
is
get that
I
type of
get
thing
that
from
type of
cannabis.
thing from cannabis.
It's like
Yeah, and I know other
It's
people
like
do.
maybe it's
So
because
maybe
I
it's
smoke
because
so much.
I
I don't
smoke so
know.
much. I don't
But when I am
know.
smoking,
But when I am
it's
smoking,
I get to a
yeah, but
point
I
where
get
I
to
have
a
no
point where
worries,
I have
no
no worries,
anxiety,
no
no
anxiety,
paranoia,
no
just feel
paranoia, just
just at ease with everything.
just at ease with everything.
yeah, I mean, I know a lot. I'm not against it. I would advocate for it. You know, I'm definitely all for it. And pretty much everybody I know smokes. So, you know, they all say the same thing. But for me, it just has an opposite effect. But I think that's because of my I don't know, maybe my brain chemistry due to PTSD um has something to do with it, maybe. When I was younger, I smoked a lot, you know, mostly hash and stuff like that, and it was okay for me then. But as I got older, it started having a weird effect on me, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Like my heart rate would go up, and I would feel like I'm having a full blown heart attack and shit. And I think it was the PTSD amplified by the, you know, by the drug. And so I don't mess with it because it doesn't do that to me. You probably already just a laid back, chill guy as it is, and it may just bring out those qualities in you. I don't know. Maybe it
Yeah,
kind of
I definitely think
speaks
it
to
has
you.
different
Has
impact on
different
different people,
impact on different people.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think it just
For
works.
sure.
It works how it needs to work for based on your own, you know, energy or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I can't mess with it. But I love psychedelics, and I do not like shrooms. I don't know why, but I wouldn't say a horrible experience, but I just didn't like it. And it's actually a lot like DMT, but then there's just this physical sensation that comes with it that I cannot stand. It makes your body feel like you're vibrating or something on a frequency that is just really freaking, I don't even know how to explain it. I didn't like it. So yeah, they can keep that one. I'm not doing that no more.
I
And people
definitely
think I'm
I
think
crazy.
definitely think
all of those things
all
are
of those things
personal
are
to
personal
each
to
individual,
each
you know?
individual, you know?
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely believe that cannabis and psychedelics definitely um have benefits. You know, I mean, DMT is used in for therapy nowadays, and microdosing, LSD and all that kind of stuff. And you know, I've heard a lot of stories about people who, you know, they do ayahuasca and they had lifelong addiction problems, and all of a sudden they didn't, like, it kind of rewired their brain. So, I mean, just from a scientific standpoint, I think it's something that we definitely should look into. And me having experimented with those things a lot, I wouldn't say a lot, but definitely have. It had nothing but a positive effect on me, and I can't say that it didn't. So, however the hell it works, you know, why the fuck not? If it helps you, if you have positive results from it, I mean, if it causes you to be in a peaceful state of mind and shit like that, like why not? It's better than drinking alcohol and destroying your fucking liver and shit like that. Right?
Oh, I totally
Oh, I
see it that way.
totally see it that way.
And
Yeah, I mean,
when I first
When I
smoked
first smoked
cannabis, I did
cannabis, I
experience
did
like a
experience like
paranoia and
paranoia and
something that felt
something that
uncomfortable.
felt uncomfortable.
But
yeah,
I've
But
smoked so
I've
much that
smoked so
I just
much that
don't get
I just
those
don't get
feelings
those
anymore.
feelings anymore.
I just get a total
I
yeah.
just get
peace
a
type of
total
thing.
peace type of thing.
When I was younger, I'd get like laugh attacks and it was all fun and shit to me. But like I said, as I got older, it just affected me differently. So I don't really need it, don't have a use for it, but I'm all for people who want to use it because I also know scientifically speaking, it has a lot of health benefits as well. The
Yeah.
one thing I would say that I didn't like when I did smoke a lot, it kind of caused me to have memory loss, I think. Like not full blown memory loss, but I would
Yeah.
forget a lot of shit, like locking my keys in the car or some dumb shit like that. And I just couldn't handle that shit because I'm not like that. I'm very organized and I know where everything is at all times. Like I don't forget shit. And so when I forget this and forget that, it disorients me. It makes me feel chaotic. So that side effect I did not like at all.
I I feel
I
that happens
I
to me
feel
as
that
well,
happens to me as well.
but it's like
But
I don't
it's like I don't
when I do
when I
cannabis
do
now,
cannabis
I'm not
now,
even worried
I'm not
about
even worried
remembering things.
about remembering things.
It's just like,
Right.
It's just like,
you know,
you know.
Whatever. What about you, Scott? You with us now?
I think so, but I'm still
I
hearing
think
that
so, but I'm
echo with
still hearing that
Lou, but
echo with
not
Lou,
you.
but
And
not
I hear
you.
echo on
And I
myself
hear
too.
echo on myself too.
Everybody sounds normal to me. But yeah, we
Hmm.
haven't even gotten through all these questions yet. And um I guess you already did yours earlier, and there are a few left. I guess we could hurry up and go through because I do have a throbbing fucking headache. I'm not even gonna lie.
Oh Lord.
Oh Lord.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was saying, what do you think God is? And we already covered that one, right, Lou?
If
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, and then it says, do you hate God? Obviously not, because we don't believe in God.
yeah,
And
obviously not.
Obviously not.
do you hate religion? I would say no, I don't. I mean, kind of, sort of. I just wish that religion would evolve, you know, to something acceptable. And I know there are individual religious people who are great people. Let me make that clear. I don't think that every religious person is automatically crazy or something like that. Um, I do respect people's beliefs for the most part, but at the same time, I have a problem with institutionalized religion, and I have a problem with mainly Abrahamic religions. Like it seems evil as shit, and I don't understand why anybody want to believe that crap. But yeah, that's about it.
I'm against
I'm
religion for
against
the most part
religion for the most part
because I
Okay.
don't think it's the
because I
best
don't
we
think it's
can
the best
do
we can
as
do
human beings.
as
Yeah,
human beings.
You know,
I
You
do
know.
agree. I definitely agree. Do you want to get rid of religion? So that would be a yes for you. And I would say, I wouldn't say entirely, but kind of yes. Let's just say yes. And then, do you want to deconvert people from religion? Not necessarily. It's not like I want to deconvert people, but I do hope that people can be open-minded and see that religion is kind of stupid.
I want to
um,
deconvert
I want to
people, but
deconvert people,
it's
but
only with a good
it's only
intention
with a
because
good
I don't think
intention because I don't think
they're doing very well
they're
with
doing very
religion
well with
mentally.
religion mentally.
But
yeah.
if someone is
But if
really
someone is
religious, and I
really
think their
religious
whole
and I think their whole
psychological thing will be
psychological
completely
thing will
whacked,
be
if they didn't
completely
believe in it,
whacked, if they didn't
then I'm
believe in it,
okay with, yeah,
then
just
I'm
keep
okay
believing
with,
it.
yeah, just keep believing it.
Right. Like the old lady down the street that likes to go to church on Sundays. I don't have a problem with her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, it's more like when you're looking at things like the state trying to enforce laws based on religion and stuff like that. That's when it gets crucial
Yeah.
for me. You know. So yeah. Next one. Um, what is the true nature of reality? Oh Lord, that's gonna open up a whole nother can of
That's the best
That's the
question.
best question.
Something I was going to throw at
Something I was
Scott
going to throw at
today because
today
I'm dealing with
because
that.
I'm dealing
And
with that.
I think
And
that's what
I
you would
think that's
call
what you would
ontology,
call ontology.
right?
Right?
What's the real
What's the
nature of
real
reality,
nature of
right?
reality, right?
right.
And I think of
And I
reality
think of
as something that
reality as
is
something that is
objectively true
objectively true
and exists.
and exists.
And I don't think of
And I don't think of
a thought as
a thought
reality.
as reality.
I think reality
I
is
think reality
tangible,
is tangible,
physical.
Okay, let me
physical.
ask you this. Do you think that, I guess you do, I think you did answer that, but let me clarify. So do you think that objective reality can only be things that are tangible? It can't be something that you may not be able to perceive.
I think that, I mean,
I
that's
think
that
that, I
whole
mean, that's that
objective and
whole
subjective
objective and
thing.
subjective
I
thing.
think
Yeah,
objective,
but
Think
let me give you a
objective.
scenario. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say you're a human being and I'm a snail on the ground, right? And we are next to each other. If you look down on me, you can see me as the snail, you know, crawling around on the ground, and you're like, ew, the snail, and you see me, the whole me, right? But that snail has a very, very limited perspective, even though you and that snail share the same space. But that snail may not be able to perceive you at all and not even know of your existence. Because if the snail, let's say, turns to the right and sees a part of your shoe, it doesn't know what it saw. So I was just saying that what's objective to you may be based on your own limited perspective. You see what I'm saying?
well, I look
Well,
at it, the
I
words
look at it, the
differently.
words
I
differently.
look at
I look at
objective meaning
objective meaning
can be
can
demonstrated,
be
can be
demonstrated,
proven,
can
can
be
be
proven, can be
examined. And
examined.
once the
And
truth
once
you're
the
talking
truth
about,
you're talking about,
I call
I
subjective
call
truth.
subjective truth.
And that doesn't mean it's
And that
bad
doesn't mean it's bad
or,
or,
something negative. It's
something
just
negative.
a
It's
different
just a
category of
different
truth.
category of truth.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's subjective truth because the fact is you exist, right? But I, the snail, I just don't know that you exist. I'm just saying I'm leaving room for things that we may not know because we just don't perceive those things or haven't found out yet or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not saying for a fact this or that. I'm just trying to expand your mind a little bit.
I really
You know,
think a lot
I
about
really
those
think a lot
things.
about those things.
And I
And
think
I
so
think
far where I'm
so
at
far where I'm
is
at is
that what you
that
described
what
would
you
be
described
subjective.
would be subjective.
Scott, do
So
you
let me
agree
ask
that's
you.
So let
subjective?
me ask you.
Yeah, it's on my view, it's intersubjective. It's hard for me to talk because I hear a whole bunch of echo.
It's just weird to me because
But let me ask you, what I'm
illusion.
thinking is the way that we get to it is maybe analytically through some questions. Like, let me ask you this, Lou. How do you know that the world exists outside of your experience?
I wouldn't know.
Okay. Can you ever experience anything independent of being conscious?
No.
Okay. Is what you call matter directly observed, or is it inferred through your sensations or perception?
Seems like it's the same thing
Yeah,
to
that's
me.
good questions.
Yeah. So what does it mean for something to be real if no one is perceiving it?
Not a damn thing.
Nothing.
Right. So could
Okay.
all phenomena just be appearances in a single universal field of appearance or of awareness, rather?
I think to have any sort of thing we can call objective truth, it has to be in that realm of being observed. And that's what makes it objective.
Yeah. So, and everybody's going by their experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, how can subjective experience arrive from purely non-conscious matter?
Non-conscious matter. That's something. I think I mean, this is the way I see it. All consciousness is subjective.
Right. So, how does this experience arise from non-conscious matter, like the brain or something like that, or a body?
It's descriptive.
And
Okay, when
those
we're
exist
talking
in your
about it's in ways that the human mind comes to understand these things.
So why does then perception feel unified? Like when the brain is a collection of separate neurons, how does it feel so unified?
I don't know.
Okay, so are thoughts, feelings, and intentional reducible to physics, or do they point to something more fundamental?
That was my question that I'm working through.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not
these,
absolutely sure. I just,
okay. So let's look at like laws of nature, right? So why does reality obey consistent laws even before you observe them?
other people are observing them.
Right, but I mean, why does that happen?
Nothing happens. This is where it gets real fuzzy for me. Because nothing really happens unless I'm thinking about something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this
Right.
question people will throw at you: if a tree falls in the middle of the forest and nobody is there, would it make a noise? It's like
Good point.
a philosophical circle.
Right. So in that case, how would multiple observers share the same objective world unless there was some underlying unified awareness that ties it all together?
A unified awareness.
Yeah,
I
because
don't
like,
know that there is a unified awareness.
well, that's what objective means. Like, if I see the tree, you see the tree, a million people see the tree, everybody's sort of aware of the same thing in a field. That's what I mean by a field, like a space of awareness.
In other words, he's saying that we're all part of the same field, and that's why we're able to observe objective reality, because objective reality is defined by what others can see as well, right?
Right.
Yeah, my basic premise is that if there is no people, no mind, it's like having nobody to describe these things. And then whether you want to say it exists or not, I don't know.
Doesn't
I
even
mean,
matter at that point.
So, right, this gets to grounding. So, like, on what grounds do we assume that matter is more fundamental than mind? How do you ground that?
I'm trying to figure out how the brain is a physical organ, and it has physical things that are going on, like electrical impulses and that sort of stuff. And these things emerge as a thought,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I'm struggling.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Right. You're getting it. You're actually asking the right questions. That's right.
And that's
So-
where I'm at. I'm not,
Yep.
you know, I'm not sure how that happens.
And see, these questions actually lead to this idealist idea. See, they undermine dualism and strict materialism by highlighting those gaps or inconsistency. They focus mainly on consciousness itself rather than the inferred matter, right? They encourage the insight that experience is primary, as you agree to. Structured, universal, naturally pointing to idealism.
See, I don't. What's idealism? Like, what's the definition of that?
Yeah, it's like when I was going through it, it's basically that consciousness is fundamental to experiencing and knowing anything. You have to be conscious first. And
Yeah,
we know
I
it's
agree with
objective
that. I
because
agree with that.
because everybody can share in that field of awareness. So these line of questioning kind of reveals the primacy, unity, and universality of consciousness, while at the same time it challenges the independence of matter, because that's an
Yeah.
assumption, like you said.
Oh, I think that some of this does come down to assumption.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't. One thing you don't assume is that you're conscious. Because if you weren't conscious, you couldn't assume anything.
Yeah, but I mean, aren't we just playing with words?
Well, that's philosophy. Welcome to metaphysics.
Welcome
I mean,
to the real world.
Yes.
Not let me stop.
Everything that you assume is tangible and out there exists inside your mind. So if you think that your mind comes from the thing you perceive, then that's circular in logic. So the metaphysic, if it's circular, it knocks the feet out from itself.
when you say circular, right, there's a circular argument, which is a logical fallacy.
Right.
But isn't there things that just become circular because they are not truly answered in an absolute way? So that you kind of go round and round and you come back to it. Which would not be the logical fallacy, but it is a circular form of thinking because there's no other way to go.
Okay, I'm back, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you better than I have.
Okay, perfect. Repeat that again because for the last few minutes.
Okay, there's a
Yeah. And
logical
now you're not
fallacy.
echoing anymore. So,
Okay, there's a logical fallacy
hmm
called circular reasoning, right?
hmm
But
hmm
not speaking of the logical fallacy. I'm talking about things that are unanswerable or you cannot know. All right. And those things kind of run in a circle. Right.
hmm
But I don't think it's the
True.
logical fallacy. It's just because something has no real answer.
Yeah. And so metaphysics is not science. It's kind of like philosophy is a different way of exploring these things. Like science is all about empiricism. So it's all about what you experience objectively with other people in that field of awareness we were talking about. Everybody's sharing that field. Everybody's looking out of their little eyes and ears and stuff like that. And they're all agreeing on what we all observe. And this intuitively makes you think that, oh, okay, so there's a world out there that we're all seeing as the truth, right? Like we're all able to agree on it together. And that sort of evidences the fact that this is true. And so while that is kind of true, on the other hand, that same materialistic premise tells us that your mind is limited, that it's illusory, that what you see is not what it really is ontologically. So science doesn't tell us what things are. Science tells us how things behave, like how we can predict what's going to happen if we do X, Y, and Z, right? And that only justifies the experience itself, but it's still all part of that experiential field we all share. We don't have access to the ontological or metaphysical reality. All we can really do is what we call metaphysics when it comes to that. It means metaphysics just means after the physics. Like the physics can tell us what things do, how they appear to us
Mhm.
objectively, right? But it also, that same process tells us we can't trust our senses. It tells us our senses are limited, that we need special tools to sort of dig in. It's kind of like maybe an analogy I could tell you. It's kind of like, have you ever played like in a VR headset? Um,
No.
you probably know what I'm talking about, though. You know how you put on those little um, glasses and they present this fake world for you that you interact with, and it's the more
Yeah.
you get into this, it gets yeah, and it gets more realistic as time goes on, right? But we know, even though everybody who's got the headset on, everybody who's participating in that VR game with you, everybody can say, look, you have to move here, you have to grab your sword and cut the, if you ever played ninja something, I think it's fruit ninja. You can kind of hit the fruit with the sword. None of this stuff is happening in quote unquote real life. It's just within your headset. So you can look into the headset, you can learn all the rules of how the game is supposed to be played, and everybody can agree on it. There's winners, there's losers, objectively speaking.
Mhm.
But we know that this isn't a reflection of the reality, right? We all know that. It's just an appearance. Well, what idealism is saying is that the same world that we see is kind of like that. Science is looking at the headset, it's learning the rules of the headset, but it's not trying to go after the headset. It's not trying to go after physics or metaphysics. It's only going to discover the rules within the game. So that's why we can't say we know anything. We can't, the only thing we can know is that we're experiencing the headset, that we're experiencing this thing. We can talk about that. The logic, we know we can do logic. We know we can have these experiences, but science right now cannot tell you what's after the science. By definition, it's not the right tool. it wasn't meant for that. It's a dumb question for science. Science doesn't really give a shit. Like,
Right.
it can measure, the Big Bang. Can't tell you what's before the Big Bang. It doesn't give a shit. It's like you can talk metaphysics, like you can say, oh, well, it's just more material stuff, like a multiverse or something like that. Or religious people could say, oh, it's a God that's before the universe or before your
Yeah.
experience. None of this stuff is known, as we've been talking about. All of this stuff is kind of an assumption. We're engaging now in metaphysics. So materialism is a form of metaphysics. So all we can really do is compare the metaphysics of materialism against the metaphysics of the idealism. We can compare those two, and we can look at which one is more parsimonious, which one is more explanatory, which one has the less internal contradictions. And so, as it turns out, materialism doesn't explain anything. Materialism breaks down, so it has no standalone existence, and it's an assumption, it's an inference, it's an appearance. Like it appears in consciousness. So that's where the circularity comes in. And that's why I bring up the circularity, because it's like if you say, well, I know that Santa Claus really exists because I see it, and all my friends said they saw Santa Claus. So Santa Claus is the truth, right? But we don't know that. It's what appears in our brains. It could be we could be in a brain in a vat, or we could be. But one thing is true: it does all exist absolutely in a shared field of experience, and so that much we can all agree on. That much we can definitely agree on. Because if we didn't, we couldn't talk about it to begin with.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what I've been working through and working through and working through. When it comes to, let's say, morality being subjective or objective, I think it's just how you look at it. It's like what do you mean by objective and subjective? Because it's how you may be viewing these things. I don't think I've been looking and trying to find out if there is a consensus on this subject, and there is none. I mean, you got philosophers on both sides. So I mean, I'm willing to say, well, I don't really know, but it's my view and my understanding that it certainly appears to be subjective to me. All right.
Hmm.
But I'm not going to say that's definitive, because I don't even know that there is a definitive on that.
Right.
Right. Like, it's kind of like arguing about something that is just unknowable. It's one of those things.
Well, and it also, again, it goes back to frameworks and what we accept as a premise. Do you accept logic? And of course you do. I already know the
Yeah,
question. It's just kind of rhetorical.
as long as it's applied properly.
Right, exactly. As
Because
long as it's applied.
you can have a very bad premise, and you could still say the argument might be considered logical, right? Maybe. Depends on how
Hmm.
you define this word logical. All right. But that
Perfect.
wouldn't lead you to a proper conclusion.
Right. So let's do this one. Let's look at the circular loop problem. So let's say this. Materialism says mind emerges from matter of the brain, right? But to even know that matter exists and brains exist and behaves lawfully, a mind must exist to observe it. You would agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Knowing it. Okay.
And
Therefore,
that in and of itself is kind of circular.
right. Thank you. Thank you. Therefore, materialism is relying on mind to justify matter while claiming matter is primary. So, in short, it assumes what it tries to explain. This is textbook circularity, which circularity is illogical. If you like logic and you accept logic, then you're going to have to abandon materialism because it's circular.
This is what I was trying to say that I'm not getting, because I understand the logical fallacy of circular, right?
Hmm.
I understand what that means. but I don't think it applies to this argument, because either way, I think you can make a circular version of it, right?
How
Because
so?
it's something that is unknowable. It's like when I
But
think
you
of,
do know.
what do I
You
know?
do know.
Morality. What is morality?
No, 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 oh, I'm sorry. Are we talking morality or consciousness?
No, no, I'm talking about
I,
morality, right?
oh,
Morality
I'm
is
so
what?
sorry, man. I'm sorry. I think because of my disconnection, I think I lost track. I'm sorry. I'm totally
Well,
off base, man.
they both relate to each other, though. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
they
like,
do.
what is morality? Does morality exist? And I would argue, no, it does not exist. Not that it's not something that is applicable, but when I think of existence, I think of scientific, tangible things, you know,
Mm,
or
mm-hmm,
things that
mm-hmm,
are
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
proven, things that are
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
proven, that are evidence based.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Okay. When I think of something like morality, I think of thoughts. And
mm-hmm.
thoughts, I just don't see it in the same category. I don't think thoughts exist. All right. Now, when I say they don't exist, I'm speaking about a specific definition. Hey,
Okay, I'm trying to get connected.
I hear you now.
Okay, I'm gonna turn my
Okay.
monitor off, my camera off. Maybe that'll help because it's
Listen,
storming out here. Yeah.
listen, this is the heart of what I was hoping you might help me with.
Okay, let's go for it.
This
Yep.
is the heart of it, the real nitty gritty of it. All right. When someone uses morality, they say morality, there's right, there's wrong, there's good and bad. All right. To me, those qualities of what is being referred to is not objective. All right. They're just simply not. That's how I'm viewing it. All
Mm-hmm.
right. There's nothing there that would tell me it's objective. Like morality doesn't exist in the way that I see existence, because
Mm-hmm.
existence is something that is objectively real, testable, observable, experiment, you can do an experiment on it. All right. Morality is thoughts, and thoughts, although they're valuable, it's like they're valuable, but do thoughts exist in that way?
No, thoughts don't exist in that way, not at all.
So
And
that's why
yeah,
I'm on the side of subjective.
subjective, yeah. And see, this is what, as a non-dualist, I would say that both perspectives can be true depending on your framework. So if like on non-dualism, you would recognize that thoughts, morality is based on your feelings, right? Like I don't want to be murdered, right? And I don't want my family to be murdered. So that's a thought, that's a feeling. And then that
Yeah.
feeling and thought, what that does is it informs my morality. So my morality
Yes.
is based on my feelings, but my
Yes.
feelings might not be your feelings necessarily.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in that sense, morality is going to be subjective. But
Right.
on
And
it,
that's what I take that position. That's
right.
why.
But on the other hand, the other perspective, you could say, thoughts and feelings are part of the overall objective reality that exists. So I take it serious that you have thoughts and you have feelings. This is why I wouldn't dare step on your foot or try to offend you in any kind of way, because that's objectively going to hurt your feelings, right? And so, in a sense, you could say that there's this quality of objectivity to it, but it's ultimately a subjective thing because it has to be rooted in your feelings, in the way you feel that I might not feel, right? So they're relative, they're subjective, they're not objective in that sense. So, in a way, both these things can kind of coexist, but to say that it's totally objective, you could come up with many arguments to easily debunk that idea, right? And so in this case, I actually printed off a transcript. Objective ethics. I don't know if he's out there still. If you are, brother, leave a comment. If you want to make some comments in the live, go for it. But objective ethics had a debate the other night, as you know, with
I ended up hearing it. Yeah.
yeah. And so objective ethics wanted me to, he felt like, he had the winning argument. Of course, everybody's going to, stand on their side. So he said, well, let's try to get some kind of objective measure. So let's go to AI and see what ChatGPT or an LI may have to say about it. So I printed off the transcript. It's a real long transcript of that debate. And AI sort of cited that both of those folks in the structure of the argument had problems, but for the most part, I think it turns out that the argument went in the favor of Tom because, it was looking at the whole picture, looking at the structure of the argument itself. So there was no real ontological proof or soundness that was displayed by objective ethics. He didn't really make. That's what ChatGPT said. It said he didn't really make a case to prove that morality is actually grounded in the things that he said it was. It's just that you're saying that, basically he was saying, I don't want to be murdered. Most people don't want to be murdered. Or one of his arguments was, you have a master and a slave. The slave wants to enslave another person, but the other person doesn't want to be the slave. Even the master who's slaving people, he himself wouldn't want to be a slave. So this proves that morality sides on objectively on the side of, objective morality. But ChatGPT pointed this out, that it was a circular argument, that it was kind of a bad argument. I actually need to pull this up.
Well,
To
let
get,
me say this. I
yeah,
listened to that debate, and I think objective ethics is awesome in that
yes,
subject, and he's awesome debater. But like from my own perspective, I didn't find somebody really won that.
right.
Right? I looked at it as what I'm trying to say. It's like, well, how are you looking at it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking at it from this frame or this perspective, or are you looking at it from another perspective?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think that whole argument ends up. It's like, I think there can be objective standards for morality.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's like the murder thing. Well, is it? What do you think? Is it helpful for humanity that people murder people or not? And I think we could come up with an objective answer that says no, that's not good for humanity, right? So
Right.
you could take that and say, well, that's objective, but but that's just the standards can be objective, I think. But when you put it on this word called morality, you're totally going to what people think. That's how I see morality.
Mm-hmm.
It's still coming back to what I think. All right. And if something is if something is based on human thought, is that objective? I tend to say no, that's not objective. It's subjective.
Right. So let me ask, can moral laws exist independent of human perception, or must they evolve with society? What do you think?
I think they do evolve with society. So, of course, they're not set in stone.
Right, right. And so when we went through that, just kind of looking at the strengths and weaknesses of both sides, um, with objective, he really grounded his argument in formal logic, and he was pretty consistent. He tried to avoid a lot of contradictions, right? The weaknesses, though, is that he assumed universal applicability of those concepts, like flourishing relies on acceptance of, for example, he brought up a lot of authorities, right? And he also used like observable consequences, like societal collapse versus cooperation, as his
Right.
grounding. But this relies on interpretation of empirical patterns, and it seems a little bit abstract. And then, so he got a lot of support from folks like Kant, Aquinas, Aristotle, and I think what was his name, Michael Carrier or whoever. Um, and this might kind of appear elitist and less persuasive to a lot of non-philosophical audiences, so it didn't really move the needle. Um, and so he sort of provided a lot of clarity and structure. So this
Yeah.
appeals to reason, consistency, and objective consequences, but the weakness there is that complex reasoning is still abstract for a lot of people, right?
Well,
And
that's what I'm
so,
saying. It's like
yeah,
I will go as far as to say I could understand there being objective standards that can be applied. I mean, I go that far,
yeah,
which is as far as I could make it. All right, but then we have an aspect of when we're speaking about morality. The word literally has to be subjective. I can't get around that.
yeah. And again, objectives out there. I'm just reading
Yes.
from I'm just referring to the Chat GPT, um, you know, um, map, the little tree, the little map, debate map that it presented. But he says that's not accurate. The AI thought Tom was defending objective ethics with his opening, which was wrong. Okay. He said the AI also thought I was committing a is ought. Yeah, A is the is ought fallacy. But Tom did that by saying it was because of evolution. I never grounded my argument in evolution. Okay, okay,
I think
that's right.
Tom grounded his argument in
Right,
evolution, didn't
right, right. And then also the results that I sent him said the conclusion was that subjective morality can't explain why we punish crimes, etc. Exactly, exactly. Like that was the other thing I wanted to get to is that you know, the critical question was, can subjective morality really reliably condemn acts like genocide, slavery, and infanticide without appealing to some form of objective reasoning? That question was never answered. And
I'm going to give you my answer to that.
okay,
All right. And it's just my answer, I mean, obviously. But the thing, the thing that with that is, I don't think it has to be grounded in that way. Like,
hmm
I think that we have a way of looking at things subjectively as a society that actually plays out as we punish certain behaviors and we allow certain behaviors. And I don't think it has to be objective. I think it's just the reality of society. It's kind of like that's how societies do things. And it does come down to numbers, right? If you have 80-90% of a society thinking something is bad, they're going to punish it. Right? Now, does that mean it's objectively bad? I don't think so. I don't think
right.
it has to mean that.
Now the thing is that you've got a lot of great thinkers. Like I'm a fan of Sam Harris, and Sam Harris is also an atheist, and he's also a
Yes,
skeptic, but he's
yes,
also a non-dualist. And as a
yes.
non-dualist, he says that he sides with he leans more towards the idea that morality is objective, right?
Yes. And so
That's
does Matt Dillahunty, by the way. And
yeah,
I respect those people and I think they're brilliant.
yeah.
But I still don't think they're necessarily right about those things.
Right. And like I say, my personal view is that I kind of see as a non-dualist both have their own perspectives where they can be true. It just really depends on, how you kind of frame your argument. I always
Yeah.
listen to the structure of the argument rather than the conclusion because I like I say, I'm agnostic on those things. Those are sort of artifacts of thinking in the mind, and the mind is limited. The mind doesn't have all the information. It's always learning, refining. So we can only go off what our mind is telling us subjectively, because the mind is what's informing our feelings and vice versa. It's
And
sort of
that's
yeah,
the crux of why I can't get to this objective morality thing.
yeah.
That's the crux of it right there. It's like we're basing these things on our thoughts, and our thoughts are subjective. They can't be objective. I don't understand how they can be.
So here, maybe I'll try to create some pushback to you. So if thoughts are subjective, and feelings and observations and all of this stuff happens in our thoughts and in our mind, then what really isn't subjective?
I would say most things that we work through in everyday life, most things are subjective. Now that doesn't mean all things are subjective, because I do think there are objective things, all right, but that's not morality. That's where I stand. That's just doesn't fit in morality. I mean, there are objective truth, objective facts, all right. And like I said, the part that I would love objective to at least understand, because it's hard to articulate, all right, I go as far as saying that the standards may very well be objective standards. We can come up, and that's the argument that Matt Dillahunty gives, as far as I remember. He says, well, there are objective standards we can go by, and therefore objective morality. But as much as I can see that it can be objective standards, there's just this element of what I've come to understand as ontology. It's like that word comes in here. It's
Hmm.
like there's an ontological difference between morality and, let's say, gravity. It's not the same thing. All right. So I could go as far as saying there can be standards that are, objective when it comes to morality, but morality itself is thought based, human beings, or God based when you're a Christian, and that must be subjective. And I can't get over that. I can't get past that.
Yeah. For me, this sort of points to truth and facts being an artifact of mind. And this sort of, even that sort of promotes idealism because a lot of the facts and truths are outside of our mind. And we know this is the case because we discover facts, right? But if we define truth, like say like for example, um uh, there's a distinction like objective versus relative truths, right? Let me try to get my thoughts together on this one. Like facts exist as patterns within consciousness, right? Like they're not as independent objects floating outside of our awareness. We know these things because they're within our personal brains, our consciousness. So relative truths are sort of contingent and local, whereas absolute truth is sort of like the awareness in which all those facts would appear. So consciousness is both the ground of reality in that sense and the medium through which truth is perceived. So recognizing that can dissolve the dualism of mind versus world and sort of maybe bring a little clarity. about how knowledge, science, and insight work so reliably, because we have to have some kind of objective standard. Otherwise, we're just talking, we're just making a lot of noise out here, right?
Well, I would go as far as to say, at least how I'm thinking about it, that science deals with objective things. It deals with empirical things. It
Mm-hmm.
deals with things that I would classify and put in that category. It's objective,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's how I see it. But other fields like philosophy, right? Because philosophy is not the same as science, right? I think philosophy deals with things that are very subjective. And morality, I put in that category. That would be the
Mm-hmm.
word, I guess, category.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
categorized in my
Mm-hmm.
mind as something that is subjective. It's not objective. It's not science. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
kind of see it.
Yeah, and this goes back to the hard problem of consciousness because, like you said, science deals with the objective, but consciousness, by definition, is subjective. The nature of science is objective, the nature of consciousness is subjective. So,
Yes.
how are we going to resolve that? And if morality is part of that subjective side, then how is science ever going to? This is why scientism is remember that philosophical guy that you debated, that theist
Yeah.
guy. He
Yeah.
was
And he
kind of
was
making
talking
that
about
point. Yeah, he was trying to make that
sciences.
point. Yeah,
Yes.
scientism. Yeah,
Yes.
where science has little to say about things like morality and stuff
Yeah.
like that because it can't really ground it objectively like that.
Yes. And here's the thing that where I'm going with it. All right. I could understand that there's scientism does not answer all questions. All right. I'm perfectly fine with that. All right. I don't think science is going to answer questions of morality, but I think questions of morality are going to be answered subjectively. That's it.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, because a lot of scientists will say, "Yeah, we leave that up to the philosophers to figure out."
Yes,
Um, you know,
because there's I don't think science can come up with a objective morality. I don't think that it's not it's outside of that discipline. It's
right?
outside of that discipline.
Yeah, it's not the right
Right?
tool.
Yes. So when you get to what is the right tool, all right, it's thought.
Yeah, philosophy. Right.
Yes. And once you go in the world of philosophy, I think unless like I said, unless I can be convinced otherwise, that philosophy is by its very nature a mind thing, and being a mind thing, it's subjective.
Right.
Doesn't mean now you see because I understand people swing out to well that means it has no purpose or no meaning. I don't go there. I think it has meaning. I think it has purpose, but I don't think it's objective.
Well, again, we go back to the categories you were talking about.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
science deals with the category of what we call um, the physical world. And when
Yes.
we start talking about these thoughts and we start debating morality, now we're talking about the world of forms and patterns and opinions and feelings. And these sort of
Yes.
things exist in a whole other dimension of reality.
Yes.
So that dualism exists, but it kind of all dissolves in a way, in a non dualistic way. But that's not very satisfying for a lot of people because, of course, in our culture, we've been conditioned to put more emphasis on the science. And why is that? Because the science gives us the technology, it gives us the medicine, it gives us all the things that really matter to us in those ways. How many inventions has philosophy ever came up with? How many um, medical advances has philosophy? Now, as it turns out, quite a bit. um, Ironically, because a lot of science is based on philosophy. There's a thing called the philosophy of science. Science is based on a philosophy, and
Yeah.
one of those metaphysical things is that you know the only thing that we should assume is that there's a physical external world and it's objective. Now that's a philosophical position.
And I would be in that category.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
therefore, being in that category, right, which I couldn't prove that to be true. I'm in that camp, so to say.
hmm,
So if I'm in that camp, I'm not seeing morality as objective.
yeah, yeah. And even though it's fair to say philosophy really does seek objective and universal truths, like especially in logic, like logic, mathematics, in metaphysics, those are supposed to be pointing towards universal truth. So philosophers, they try to reason beyond just subjective perspective so that they can kind of uncover principles that will hold regardless of an individual's subjective experience. For example, we were talking about this earlier in formal logic or say mathematics. Truths are not dependent on who thinks them. They are considered necessary and universal. So philosophy is not entirely subjective. It aims to kind of bridge that gap between the subjective experience and the objective understanding, just to kind of be fair. So subjectivity is a tool, not a limitation. That's how we reflect critically on those sort of things. But science, is mainly trying to look at the appearance of things, like how things behave, whereas philosophy is trying to go deeper and create some kind of objective ontology to that stuff. And so there's a lot to bridge there. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie to you.
When
That,
you
that that's
go
a
in,
lot.
and yes, it's a lot. It's deep. It's very
It's not easy.
mind bending.
Yep. Yeah.
Because when you go into ontology itself, right? Is that objective?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing. If we like logic, like okay, logic when done absolutely correct, let's say like a very rigorous language of logic like math, would you say that's objective if it was done right and that it actually does sort of point everybody to the same thing? Like in other words, gravity or the earth being round, is that objective or is that subjective?
No, there are objective truth. That's what I'm saying. I do believe that. I
Right.
believe that there are things that are objectively true. It's just a different category. There are things I said this to you in a comment. Um, I think there are things that are objectively true and things that are subjectively true.
Me
I
too.
don't think it's an either or. I think it's both.
Right.
And
And
and if it is both, if it is, then you could say the argument is just never going to be resolved. I mean, it's going to be resolved with a an agreement to disagree.
yeah, that's right. And that's why it's been strung along for thousands of years. It's like no one's ever really came to a conclusion about these things. And I guess the way I'm kind of looking at it is all of these categories though, reality these are human things. We're the ones that cipher things off into categories and definitions through our language. But reality doesn't give a shit. Reality is just reality. It's just one thing. So there's the subjective, the objective, all of that stuff exists within the same reality in,
Well,
the
when
ultimate,
see, this
beingness.
is that whole thing where I can't get over reality, right? Reality is morality real? I say no, not in what we would consider something to be real,
Hmm.
because real means objectively true, testable, observable, experimentations. That's things that we could say are real. Am I wrong? That would be real.
Sure, but I mean, is it real that you love your children?
No, I casually say that, and it's real to me, which is subjective. See how these words,
I know.
and that's not unimportant. Of course, it's important, all right? But I just don't put that in the category of objective. Just like love,
Yeah.
I use that as an example. Love is important, right? Is love real? I don't think so. I mean, it's subjectively real. It's not objectively real.
It's a kind of realness, maybe.
Yeah, and that's why I think the argument never is really fully resolved. That's the reason. Because
Hey,
I don't
Joe.
think it can be fully resolved.
Yeah.
Hey
Go
guys,
ahead,
had to
Joe. You
jump
got
back in
some
here.
thoughts? Yeah. I'm gonna go get. I need to go get something to eat. Real. I'm just gonna bring a drink back. Y'all go for it. I'll be right
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, Lou, I hear you talking, and I'm certainly not going to tell you you're wrong about your view of what it means to be real. I would just kind of say that for a lot of us, we just kind of say there's objective reality and there's subjective reality. So the things that are subjectively true are real in a subjective way, which is different from something that
Mm-hmm.
is objectively true. So
Yeah.
that's another place where kind of that distinction between those two categories, is very, very useful because I'm with you. There are things that are subjectively real that we kind of casually say, well, that's not real, like a unicorn or, like a fictional story. We say, well, that's not real. But what we mean is it doesn't have any objective existence or reality.
Yes, and
It
that's
is
that's
it's
where
certainly
I'm
subjectively real.
that's where I'm seeing a category thing.
Hmm.
I'm seeing this.
Hmm.
That's where I'm seeing. I see it when I use a word like reality. I'm referring to a type of reality. Okay. When
Okay.
I use the
Yeah.
word truth, I can personally see there's subjective truth and there's objective truth. I don't see truth as just being objective. I see it as there's both. All right. And but I'm not going to say subjective truth is objective. Do you kind of see where I'm going with that?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's good reason to say one is not the other, but then again, I tend to think that there are things um, that we could kind of say um, about something that is subjectively true, that there's something external to both you and me that makes it true. You know what I mean? It's still a mind dependent stance, which is what makes it subjective. But if
Yes.
we were to say, for instance, that there are people who believe that the Earth is flat, right?
Yes.
That's true. Is it subjectively true that they believe it, or is it objectively true that they believe it?
Yeah. This
Um,
is this is where we start parsing words, you know, and
well,
that's to me where the arguments go. It becomes, well,
Hmm.
what do you mean by that, and what do you mean by this? All right. So
yeah,
Welcome to
yeah,
philosophy.
I try to be very clear on what I mean, right? You know, so when I say morality is subjective, I'm referring to certain definitions and certain meanings
yeah,
to these
yeah.
words. And that's my whole argument. It's not really
And
based on
I think
anything else.
I agree with you. I think one of the ways where it starts to veer off, um, if we start with something that is objective, like saying we value our own well-being, right? And we have a shared sense of value of the well-being of others as well. That's subjective for sure. But then if we go, well, what kind of things are good for our well-being and what kind of things are not good
Yes.
for our well-being? Well,
Yeah.
now we're going to have some objective truths about what is good for us and what is not good for us. Like
Yes.
poison
And
is
I
not
and
good
I
for
go
us.
there. I go there.
Yeah.
right?
And so that is the extent where when people sometimes when I hear people say that morality is objective, I'm trying to figure out if that's what they mean when they say there are some things that are objectively immoral because they are objectively bad. And if we assume the subjective value, foundation, which is well-being is valuable, then we can get to objective statements about what's moral and what's immoral. And we don't have to say it's just a matter of opinion. No, it's not a matter of opinion. Poison is definitely not good for you, and so
Yes,
poisoning someone is definitely immoral. You know what I mean?
yes.
There is a way of saying that's objective, but again, it's all rooted in
But
subjectivity as far as I can
here's
tell.
yes, that's why I think it just never resolved because it's how you're perceiving these words. All right.
Yeah, and
It's
people will
kind of
go
like
back and forth about how they're using them, and they'll use them in more than one way in one
yes, and it's a
conversation.
very, very, you know, in-depth argument based on what a particular person is meaning when they say these words. All right. And that's why I try to be very clear on my definitions because my
Yeah,
definition, let's say, of subjective may not be another person's, right? It could be totally different.
yeah, exactly.
All right. But in my definition, I feel my argument is solid, using my definitions.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, no matter what the standard is, because like I said, I'll go as far as to say the standard can be objective. We can look at things and say, well, this is definitely preferred than this. This type of stance on morality is objectively better when it comes to the things like human well-being. We can do that, you know, but
Hmm.
we can't separate morality from human thought process. I don't see how
Yeah.
it can be
Well,
done.
but see, that's true about things that are just plain old subjective. I mean, sorry, objective. If we were to take like facts about the universe, like the Earth being round, for instance, and we were to
Yes.
say, well, that's an objective fact. But like I think Scott would be quick to point out that you don't get that separate from thought. That is just you coming to that conclusion is absolutely a mind dependent thing. And the experience of those external objects, that we can say, well, hey, we can say objectively true things or objectively false things about these objects.
Right.
Um,
And the problem
those
is
are
that,
all within our experience.
right. And the problem is that it becomes a blind spot, especially in our culture, because we put so much stock into objectivity that we actually overlook what you just said there, Joel. We kind of look at it like, no, 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 this isn't my thought. I don't think that the world is round. I know the world is round. That's just a truth. That's an absolute fact of reality. And most people are
Well,
at the blind spot is that people forget that even if it's agreed upon by everybody on the earth that the sun comes up every day and sets every day, that it's really mind dependent. And so that intuition is really strong and it's hard to overcome that. And that's what makes it
well,
hard to talk about these things.
it's mind dependent under an idealist world, right? But the question of whether it is mind dependent in the way that our thoughts and stances are is the way that we're saying it's not mind dependent when we're talking about objective facts, right? Now, what I was acknowledging that like we don't get to objective facts without depending on our minds to do it. Um, but
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily follow that the thing that we're learning about is dependent on the mind. Us learning was dependent. Us
Oh,
experiencing it is
here's a
dependent.
question for
But the
both of you
thing
guys.
that we're experiencing, is it dependent on a mind or not? That's kind of the question we're wrestling with when we talk
Yes,
about
and here's
idealism.
here's the thing. right? And I
Mm-hmm.
want to ask both of you because this is the crux of what I'm trying to like really boil down for myself, where I can take a strong stand on either side. All right. And that is when you're talking about the earth and is it round, is it flat, you know, how tall is that mountain? Those types of things can objectively be measured.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could all say you could have
Yes.
an objective fact about those things.
Correct.
All right. But can we have an objective fact about morality? I don't think, I think the category is
Oh,
wrong.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
They're wrong.
yeah, yeah.
the
I see what you're
reason
saying.
I think
Yep,
the
yep.
answer is yes is because morality is such a blanket term for not only the subjective values that we start with, where we say, "Hey, I value well-being and I share that value with you," that it also includes those later downstream assessments of what we ought to do. And like we said, those are often objective assessments where we say, yes, it's bad for you to have poison, and so it's immoral to poison someone.
Mhm.
Because morality applies to both of those things, the starting values and the downstream um, kind of applications of them, that's why people, end up saying that it is both objective and subjective, is because they're talking about two different parts of it.
And let me jump
Yes,
in real
and
quick. Let me
that's where
jump
I
in real
think it
quick.
is.
Let me
Yeah.
jump in real quick to say one thing. As I want to say that I was reading from that AI output when I put that transcript in it, and that AI got it all wrong, and it even threw me for a loop. So I think I misframed objective ethics when I was going over that, and I just want to apologize for that because he is one of our co-hosts, and I just want to make sure we don't that I'm not out here publicly straw
Hey,
manning folks.
let me say this. I try to fact check things that I'm going to say,
Yeah.
right? Not, I mean, and I can't all the time because he's saying stuff off the cuff, but I try to fact check myself, you know. And if you do like a fact check on something like, is morality subjective or objective, you're not going to come up with a real solid answer either way. What you're gonna see is, well, some philosophers argue it this way and other philosophers argue it that way. So that tells
Yeah, there's
me that that's subjective because the human mind is playing a major role in this.
Hmm.
oh well, yeah, the assessment of what is and isn't subjective is necessarily a mind dependent process.
And
But
isn't
people
morality in
disagreeing,
that
people,
category?
not having a consensus on it doesn't tell us what the truth of it is. There's going to be a truth of that, but often when something is objective, we identify it in the world and point to it. But I mean, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and again, I don't go and say everything has to be objective. I think most things are not. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when I look at all the things that I'm looking at, a lot of them are subjective, you know, and it's preferences and opinions and feelings, all those things. And those imply subjective.
Yeah. Um.
Yeah, definitely to me.
Yeah.
And that's where the argument that I can't get over, that part of it,
Lou, have
and
you been arguing with Daniel and others about this, or have you
oh
just been
yeah,
speaking?
I've argued with Christians about it, and Daniel, objective ethics, we friendly. I mean, like I'm doing
Hmm.
here. I mean, it's just friendly. I mean, I'm actually working through these things, so
Hmm.
I'm trying to grasp, the most solid arguments for morality being objective. I just haven't gotten there. I'm more like I just keep seeing it as as a subjective thing, you know.
Hmm.
And it's not I don't ultimately I think that it doesn't matter. I make that point a lot
Yeah.
because I mean it doesn't matter whether you think something is subjectively wrong or objectively wrong. Your behavior is going to be the same, really. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you're not gonna decide to murder someone or not based on, well, do I think it's subjectively good or bad, or do I think it's objectively good or bad? You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's
not
like the old
ultimately,
argument.
you
Like,
know.
if morality is subjective, then that means you get to grape and pillage all you want, right? But
Right,
then, the
right,
counterfactual to that is then why isn't everybody graping and pillaging then? What's
right.
what's
Because
holding it back?
I consider my own morality very subjective, but I don't think my morality is meaningless. I don't think it is has no value. I think all of those things are kind of, you know, it's the arguments I hear from people who say God is objectively real.
Even materialists would say that, perception is indirect, that the brain doesn't see reality. It constructs an internal model of the external world based on sensory input. So that would fall into the category of subjective in a way. So, like, for example, like light waves, sound vibrations, all of that stuff hits your senses, right? And so your brain then processes those signals into what we would call colors, sounds, tastes, and smells. But actually, there are no sounds out there, right? They're just information, and then the information is processed through our computer we call the brain, something like a computer. So what you experience is not really the world itself, but it's kind of like a neural representation of all that stuff, kind of like a useful simulation for survival. So it's kind of like what they would call, I think they call it like indirect realism or representational theory of perception. But all of this stuff falls into the category of subjective if we're consistent. Yet these same folks talk about, how the earth being round is an objective fact. And I think this gets into the hard problem of solipsism, where no one can really prove, solipsism is incorrect. And until that problem gets solved, we're going to constantly be going around in this circle. It's like an epistemic loop.
Well, it is, and it's ultimately, does it really matter in real life? And I still say, when I ask myself that question, I'm like, no, it really doesn't matter,
Yeah.
because I always say I've never spoken to someone where you just talk about morality and it becomes a big thing, whether it's objective or subjective. This is totally a philosophical thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't,
I think some people will tell you that if it's subjective, then you might as well throw it in the trash and do whatever you want. I
Nihilism.
yes,
think
Yeah.
but
that's
I
how
think
they
that
view
is,
that
but that's a
is that
bad
if
understanding to me.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. It just
Yeah.
kind of
One of
says
the,
a subjective thing can't be important and that you ought to do. But clearly, if that's the world we're living in, then the only thing that you ought to do, it has to be subjective, necessarily is.
Well, that's kind of where I'm at on the subject. And and I think the dualism comes into play,
hmm
but I'm everything Scott says, I'm non-dualist. I'm totally non-dualist,
hmm
but I don't see how in the subjective and objective thing even plays into that, really.
I kind of look at it as both. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin. Like, how we were talking about how, darkness is the absence of light. So it's all definitional. It's like our language. Our language kind of like defines stuff by its opposite. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we can accept the opposite. Otherwise, we couldn't talk about shit. It's like
Yeah.
we couldn't even talk about anything if we didn't have definitions and observe things. And it's very necessary. And dualism is probably the most immediate type of reality we have, because it's the very thing that, like you were just saying, it gives rise to things like love, what we love, what we hate, our preferences, what we find moral, immoral. All of that exists in the world of dualities. But it's just that, like you said, Lou, ultimately you're a non-dualist because you kind of recognize that, and that dissolution is the ultimate truth, you might say. And but the dualism is actually very, very meaningful, because without it, we couldn't even talk about it. So it's an interplay. It's really just contrast, and it's all a relation, within our mind.
Yeah,
And this
and
is
it's
where
how you
philosophy comes in. Yeah,
it's how you're framing it in your
right.
mind
That's
and
right.
how you're processing these things.
Yep.
That's my ultimate view on this morality thing. But
Bingo.
dealing with Christians, to me, there's this, it's a lot simpler for me just to argue from a position of subjective morality. It just seems like an easier argument for me, because
Well, for
when they talk about God, they're kind of using similar arguments to the objective morality thing. They're making something that's a concept in a mind objective. God is objectively real. And I just don't see that argument holding any weight.
they will also make the argument that God exists because objective reality exists. Sorry, objective morality exists, and it couldn't exist without a God. Therefore,
Yeah,
God exists.
they linked the two. Yeah. And that's what
But I
I'm
mean,
talking
yeah,
about.
I'm that same way. I'm like, you haven't even demonstrated that morality, objective morality exists, much less that a God is necessary for it. Um, oh, there's all kinds
I've
of
talked
quotes.
to a lot of Christians who will say objective morality exists, therefore God exists.
Yes,
They'll give that argument.
yeah, yeah, that's a very common one.
And
But it's
and
all
it's
assertions, top to
and I
bottom,
know and I
nothing but
know
assertions.
that there are people that are atheists that believe in objective morality. I'm aware of that, and agnostics and different. But you never find a Christian who believes in subjective morality. Like I don't even encounter that.
I don't suppose I have either. I wouldn't rule it out, but
So they're kind of linked in that way. It's like you need them both, I think, to uphold your Christian worldview.
well, I mean, I'm often trying to point out that the kind of morality Christians are asserting is real is what we would call subjective morality, where a being just kind of determines what is right and what is wrong and kind of just hands that down. That's mind dependent. That's stance dependent, right?
That's the way I see it. And that's, I think,
So,
why I'm falling part of it. And I understand I have a bias. See, I understand. I think all people have a bias of some sort. And my bias would lead me, or my presuppositions or my assumptions would lead me to see morality as not objective. And part of it is my deconversion out of Christianity. I think that's part of why I'm seeing it this way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sitting here trying to talk to Objective and Live, because I didn't mean to say that the AI said you lost necessarily, but when I was looking at it, I just keep seeing all these uh because I was just focusing in on what it had to say about objective ethics, and it was bringing up a lot of the problems with the argument, like it was bringing up these different fallacies and stuff. But I think it did also bring up the fallacies with Tom as well. So let me look at
Yeah.
that too. I just don't want to like make one person look bad. That
No,
wasn't what I
and
was
let me
trying to
say
do.
something.
Yeah.
I think that it was, you know, a draw if I was judging it,
Yeah.
because I think there was good points on both sides. Um, Again, is there an ultimate answer? Are we going to conclude that morality is subjective or objective and come to a definitive answer on that? I don't think so.
No. And I think that it was saying that Tom's was mainly his weakness was he was appealing just off feelings rather than some sort of logical rigor, whereas objective
Yes.
ethics was, and so his structure was more based, whereas Tom's was a little bit based on feelings and stuff like that. So it was,
Yeah, I don't think Tom's arguments were the best. I mean,
yeah,
like, I that his arguments really weren't mine. Mine are different, you know.
hmm
But I mean, he made some good points, and of course, objective ethics made good points too. And that's, you
yeah,
know, and round and round and round we go, right?
yeah. It just goes on and on. Yeah, like it's always it comes down with debates about structure. And I think that, in my opinion, I thought that objective ethics structure was better. Like I had mentioned the other night, like I thought that if we're looking at foundationalism on things like logic and consistency and stuff like that, obviously objective ethics won it hands down because Tom really didn't bring any of that stuff to the table. He was mainly looking at, well, his whole point was that it was subjective, right? So
Yeah,
that's
based
where,
on based on
yeah,
feelings.
on feelings, right, right. That's the whole idea. So it just depends. Like if you look at feelings as a defeater, then obviously one's going to say, "Well, Tom lost because feelings don't matter." But then if you more or less weigh towards logic and structure, obviously he won. So it's kind of a draw because in a way, like you said, I mean, like told you before, I tend to look at both sides of the coin as just as real as the other. Like, if everything was just objective facts and no feelings, then it would mean nothing. It wouldn't mean a damn thing. But if it's just feelings, then it's all kind of arbitrary. So you kind of need that interplay, right? And so both sort of work with each other. They marry perfectly. They're kind of asymmetry that makes things worth, talking about and arguing about. But that's kind of where I stand on it. But I was by no means trying to say objective ethics lost. I was just reading through the weaknesses on his side of it, just per the
Hey,
conversation.
So Daniel can't
this
hop on right now.
Yeah, I wish he'd hop on so he could defend himself. I don't. I don't want to like. I feel like I'm getting in trouble with him.
I don't think it's I literally feel like arguments don't even have to be personal. They're just arguments.
Yeah, that's all they are.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's like, you know, and as far as presentation, I think objective ethics is awesome, and I think he won the debate as far as presentation.
mm-hmm.
All right,
Oh yeah, he's
but
very good at expressing his ideas and
all right,
getting
but
getting his points across, and having a lot of he obviously kind of has a wealth of knowledge on the subject to draw from.
yes, and that's important in a debate, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but it ultimately doesn't solve the problem, right?
Yeah,
There's
and
still a problem here.
and a lot of people are wired up different. Remember that lady that came on? I think she was a theist, and she came on your show, Lou, and she was talking about the reason she believes in God and Jesus and all of this and that, and and she was mainly basing all that stuff on feelings.
Yeah.
And so, and I kind of like interjected and was like, well, we can resolve this pretty easy, because for her, she didn't seem like someone who was all that philosophically sophisticated, or
No,
not
definitely not.
really, and so I kind of like wanted to let her know, I think you're just led mainly by your feeling, which is fine, which everybody's wired different. That's why we have the world
That's
we do.
that's
So
what
it's
I'm saying
okay.
too.
Yeah, it's
I
okay.
mean, someone like that had a particular psychology that was important to her,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's okay to me too. It's like, if that's how you cope, particularly with the death of a child, you know,
Right. Right.
who am I to say? You cope with it any way you have to cope with it, right? Get
Right.
through it
Right.
any way you have to get through it,
Yeah.
right?
I jumped in because just looking at that situation, I didn't want her to get the idea like she was being dogpiled, or, you know, like someone was criticizing her for, because everybody's different. And so it just depends on how we're approaching these things. So like Tom, he was approaching it mainly off feelings, and that was his whole point, was that that's what subjective is. It's like, so of course he's gonna have to stand on his point, and it seems
He
like objective ethics is more of a logical kind of person. So he's more or less impressed with, logic, philosophy, connecting things together in a consistent way. And that's a strength. It just depends on how we approach these things. And an audience member, maybe an objective, neutral person, if they were more a touchy feely kind of person, they'd probably think Tom won. And if somebody was like, well, I'm all about logic, and if it ain't logical, it don't matter, maybe that person would say objective one, maybe. It just depends,
This whole thing
when
of
when you're
who
talking
who won
about
the debate, I
feeling,
think, is always the wrong question. Like, what do we mean that someone won the debate? Do we mean that
yeah,
they had? Do we agree with the argument that they make, or the position that they were holding? Do we mean that they changed our mind? Do we mean that they embarrassed the other person? What do we mean? Uh, to me, like the idea of, hey, who do you think won the debate, or who do you think? To me, it's a lot more interesting to just say, you know, did you did you did you have your mind changed by anything that anyone said? Did anybody sway you from where you went in? The position that you went in holding. And then there's some question of, like who does the better job in delivery? Some people are, very good at it, and other people kind of stumble through it. And
and what
I think that's
about
also part of the question. But for instance, in this case, I thought that objective or Daniel, you know, had the much better delivery. But I didn't agree with him going in, and he didn't really do anything to sway me. And
right?
so it's kind of one of those things of like, who won? You know, it. I
Yeah,
wouldn't even begin to try to say who won.
it's like a
Um,
Yeah,
bad
and
question.
I think
what about
Daniel was the more
what about
polished
if you
speaker.
learn something? That I look at it, if I'm watching a debate or
Oh
listening to a
yeah.
debate, if I learned something, then it was a positive.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a win for everybody. I mean, if you if you if we learn something, but um, again, you could learn something from somebody and still not agree with them, or
Absolutely, I
still
do all
not
the
think that they
time.
did a good
I
job
learn things
arguing
from
for their
people I don't
point.
agree with
You know
all
what
the
I mean?
time.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
But I heard Daniel say a few things that I think I would disagree with. So I'm looking forward. I think I'll try to save them for him rather than try to put them out here. But yeah, unlike you guys, I went in thinking subjectivity is the more descriptive, accurate descriptor of what's going on with morality.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's and Tom had that position, but he used basically one aspect, which is the feelings thing. You know, but I think you can make a broader argument than that. You know, I use definitions. That's pretty much, I think, my argument is pretty much based on what these words mean.
Yeah, the framing.
Yeah,
Um,
framing, exactly.
yeah, and I think Objective Ethics said next time he's going to kind of approach it more from agency. He's going to try to come at it that way, because it gets into, it kind of addresses that, you know.
Here's a question, quick, before I go. When is there anything? Because every time someone gives me something that they would say is objectively morally wrong, I seem to be able to figure out hypotheticals that would make it different. Like murder. Is murder always in every situation wrong? And when I ask myself that, I come up with not always, right? So if it's not always wrong, then it can't be objective. And it like
Yeah.
I use an example of if, and it's a hypothetical, and I understand that, but hypotheticals are meant to make you think, right? So if you have a situation where you know that murder is the unlawful killing of another person and you live in the United States, all right, but you encounter a situation where you're the person who has to make a quick decision, and the fact is that this other person is going to destroy all of humanity. Let's say, an atomic thing where all of humanity would be destroyed. And you knew that was going to happen. If you murdered that person, I would say that would be the moral thing to do.
Hmm.
And yet it's certainly illegal. It's murder is, you can't make an argument that murder is generally good. It's awful. But I seem to be able to always come up with some hypothetical that makes it not always wrong.
Well, murder is
Yeah, and
unjustified killing, and what you're kind of doing is saying, well, I can imagine a scenario where it would seem justified, even though I might get arrested for doing it. The difference is that you see the justifications in this scenario that you've imagined, where the police and others don't. I think
Yes.
that in a situation where you could demonstrate your justification for killing someone, people would say, oh, you didn't murder them. You did this to stop them from
Well, then
whatever
again,
it was they were going to
now
do.
we're playing with words again. We're going back to, well, what do you mean by murder?
No,
Right?
no, well, I mean, that's just what murder means. It means unjustified killing.
See, I know it as
it's a
unlawful.
legal term.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unlawful.
in legal terms, it's unlawful, but in terms of just any kind of discussion, we're talking about whether or not there's a justification. There are justifications that make killing legal, right? But it's the justifications that matter. It's the
Yeah, and
circumstances.
that's still going to go to court.
Self-defense is one of the
See,
easiest ones to
see, I
bring up.
follow this. I follow this through, and I'm picturing. Well, then it would go to court, and a judge would make a decision, and he'd base that decision on the objective facts that he encountered. But ultimately, his decision is subjective.
Right. Yep.
So
No
it's
avoiding it. No avoiding that.
so that's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, again, it's framing how you look at it, what meaning you're putting on these words, how you're using these words. And I just look at it as an improper category to call morality objective. It's like, that's how I see it. It's just in the wrong category.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Sounds like we're on
And
agreement on that.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Wow.
anyway, I got to run. I'm like way over time.
Yeah, me
But
too.
I always
All right, well,
appreciate
hey,
the. Go ahead.
we'll talk to you.
Yeah, I always appreciate the intellectual discussions because
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it makes my mind think. And I always say this because I'm, 62 and I smoke a lot of pot, I always say the more my mind can think, it's probably a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It keeps us from having Alzheimer's disease.
Exactly. And when you're getting to my age, you
Yeah.
start worrying about that.
Hell yeah, I'm already, and obviously because I misspeak and sometimes, and again, if I misspoke objective, I didn't mean to. It wasn't, no offense, no offense.
Hey,
But okay,
trying to keep your words articulate and meaning exactly what you're trying to say is not easy.
it's
It
not
gets
easy, bro.
complicated, especially when in
Yeah,
debate and when talking about these deep thoughts. It gets hard to even pull the words out that you want to use to describe your position, you know?
yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, well, let's go ahead and end the stream. I'm gonna get up early. I'm gonna record a session with a guy that I'll have a future show with regarding. He's got beliefs in out of body experiences and this kind of stuff, metaphysical, what a lot of people call woo woo. So we're gonna listen to what he's got to say. I'm gonna record that, and then right after that, we're gonna go on the live stream tomorrow and interview Paul Massell. I'm sure Joel will have a lot to ask him, so that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll
So
try
I'm
to be
gonna have to
tuned
have
in
a
for
lot
that.
of sleep. I'm gonna have to get lots
Yeah.
of rest tonight.
Yeah.
All right, old man.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Get out of here.
Yep,
Good talking with you.
absolutely. Yes,
All right.
sir.
Have a good night.
Y'all be good.
Later.
Peace.
Yep.